Hi guys. This is Hirosaki and I hope you enjoy this one. This story is all about what if Naruto met Sailor Moon. Has anyone noticed how Naruto's sexy technique looks a bit like Usagi? What if there was a reason for that similarity? A Naruto Sailor Moon crossover Naruto Harem. Welcome aboard. Chapter 1. Usagi was in tremendous pain as she lay on her hospital bed desperately trying to give life to the child within her womb. There was a sense of urgency knowing that the hospital could soon be under attack by that horrific tailed beast, the Kyuubi. Looking into the midwife's eye after a push, Usagi could see the fear that resided in the midwife's heart. If the woman had the ability to look back on her life and not focus on the immense pain she was currently in, she would have been surprised at the route her life had taken. Konoha was not her native town. In fact, the world she was living on was not even the world of her birth. 8 years ago she had been caught in the explosion caused by the destruction of Pharaoh 90. When she had awakened in the Konoha hospital, she was told that a genin team led by their Jounin sensei had found her washed up on the shore surrounded by the wreckage of things they couldn't identify. She then had met with the team that had found her, and that's where she met him, Minato Namikaze. The two of them had a few minutes of conversation before Minato offered to let her stay with him for a few days until she could get back on her feet. At the time she didn't know why, but that night she revealed to Minato the fact that she was from a different world. Minato was shocked for a moment but then just smiled and accepted this as a fact. Minato explained to Usagi that, while he believed her, most of the people in Konoha wouldn't believe her and call her crazy. That night the two of them stayed up crafting a cover story for her. In the end they decided to say that she was on board a ship from a country across the Eastern Ocean that sank. To explain away her unique abilities, Minato said that they would just say that it was a bloodline limit. Everyone accepted the story except for the Hokage, who they told the truth to. Over the years she and Minato kept in close touch until 3 years ago when Minato asked her to marry him and she accepted. They were married just 6 months after the end of the Leaf Rock War and 2 months before Minato became the 4th Hokage. When she found out that she was expecting a child, she and Minato couldn't be happier. However, for the past 2 weeks she had been ill and was bedridden in the hospital in order to make sure that she and her child would be safe. Then that blasted fox had to appear and her child decided to come out now of all times. The pain of giving birth was beginning to be unbearable for her. Her son seemed stubborn in wanting to come out even though she had gone into labor. After one last push she heard the crying of her child taking his first breath in the world. One of the midwife's assistants came next to her and said, "You have a healthy baby boy, Usagi." Sarutobi silently cried as he looked at the little baby sleeping peacefully in his arms. The little boy was only a few days old, but sadly most of the civilians in Konoha harbored a deep hatred for the little babe. They blamed little Naruto for the sins that the Kyuubi had wreaked on Konoha, even though the two were separate persons. When Sarutobi thought about the situation, he let out a curse towards his predecessor. "Damn you, Minato. I should have been the one to use the seal, not you. As a result of your stubborn determination, your only son is now an orphan and hated by the village we've sworn to protect. At least our ninjas respect your skills enough to know that your son is not the Kyuubi." Sarutobi stopped his gripping when he saw a furry black cat with a crescent moon on her forehead moving quietly along the corners of his office. Sarutobi then spoke up and said, "Hello Luna, is there something I can help you with?" Luna turned her head to look at Sarutobi before she walked near and jumped onto his desk. Luna looked lovingly at the little babe resting in the old Hokage's arms before speaking. "Yes, there is something you can help me with. You can tell me your plans are for my prince." Sarutobi almost choked when he looked at Luna as she spoke to him. It always made Sarutobi smile when he saw Luna and Usagi's good cop, bad cop routine. Although the little advisor was always overly paranoid in his mind, one could tell how much she cared about Usagi and now Naruto. In his wise old grandfatherly voice, Sarutobi said, "Don't worry your little head, Luna. You know that I loved Usagi like she was my own daughter, just like almost everyone who knew her. Besides, I owe Minato quite a lot and the village is sadly just increasing the debt owed to Naruto's family. I've gotten the council to leave Naruto alone, but I can't adopt him like I would have liked to do. I've arranged for you and Naruto to have a small cottage on the edge of one of the quieter edges of town. Sadly, Naruto can't live in his parents' house until he can claim his father's name, and we both know the conditions for that to happen. At this point, both Luna and Sarutobi bowed their heads in thought. Naruto would have to have his true name hidden to protect him until he became a chunin, he reached 18 years old, or he married. Luna's face grew firm as she spoke. I may only be able to be in my human form for 1 hour out of 3, but I will take care of Naruto. When they really needed help, I couldn't help his mother or his grandmother. I will not fail Naruto now when he needs my help. Sarutobi just nodded his head and thought that maybe Naruto's luck was about to change. Almost 12 years later. In a meadow on the edge of Konoha, as the sun was casting its evening light, a little boy could be found. Naruto Tuskino, the future Hokage according to him and the demon brat according to some of the nastier villagers, was hard at work practicing his martial arts. Naruto didn't know why most of the older villagers hated or ignored him, but he wanted to change that. He wanted to become Hokage to protect the few people that were kind to him and to show the others how wrong they were about him. Sweat was starting to run down Naruto's face as he finished his rough kata. The kata was choppy and had a lot of holes in it, but it was coming along fairly well and in a few days should be his 7th custom kata. At the Ninja Academy, the martial arts instructor seemed to have a grudge against him and would only teach Naruto the minimum. It had been about 4 years ago when, just a few days into the academy, Naruto noticed that some of the kids were better in that particular class and were using different styles. Determined not to be outdone, right then and there Naruto had silently vowed to create a powerful family style for the Tuskino family. Over the past 3 years Naruto took his minimal academy training, his observations of Chunin practicing, and his own gut instinct to slowly form the Jintoskaiken, Silver Moon Fist, style of martial arts. It wasn't just his own observations that he used in creating and refining the Silver Moon Fist. Whenever he could, Naruto would go to the local library to read about ninjas. Those books had been a godsend to Naruto whenever he was stuck on something. The most blaring example of this happened a year ago when he was trying to get a basic framework for the Silver Moon Fist together. Naruto was on the verge of giving up and going to old man Sarutobi for help when he read that some martial arts schools were based on the movements of animals. Ever since then Naruto had adopted the feline movements of Aunt Luna. Suddenly Naruto's practice was interrupted by a voice yelling, "Naruto, get in the house now. Supper's starting to get cold." After yelling that he was coming, Naruto started to walk back home where Aunt Luna was waiting for him. Naruto might have thought it strange that his aunt was a talking cat who, on occasion, could transform into a human, but he just took it as a fact of his life. Luna and Naruto loved each other dearly, even a blind man could see that about the aunt and nephew. One thing that Naruto liked about Luna was that she supported him in everything he did. She never claimed that something was out of his reach if he worked hard enough at it. While Sarutobi and later Irika cared deeply for Naruto and he cared for them, they just weren't there 24/7 like Luna was with him. When Naruto had said, at age 5, that he wanted to become Hokage, Luna had told him that he would have to work hard to get there and she would help him. When Luna taught him what she could about being a ninja, she made sure that he paid attention and heaven help him if she found out that he had been slacking at the academy. Naruto walked through the door of the small cottage to see Luna waiting on the dinner table in her cat form for him. After Naruto sat down at the table, the two of them began to eat. It was a simple meal that Luna had prepared for them, as even after 12 years of practice she could only make simple meals. The meal was eaten in silence as Luna was too busy eating her meal and Naruto was, for the moment, tired out. Once dinner was over and the dishes taken care of, Naruto hurried upstairs and then hopped out of his bedroom window onto the roof. It was a warm evening with clear skies granting Naruto the full view of the heavens. Ever since Naruto could remember, he was fascinated by the heavens. There was something about the stars and the moon that just seemed to call to him. Naruto knew the names of all the stars and their locations throughout the year by heart. Naruto could with a glance at the heavens and tell where he was to within a second or two of his actual position. When Irika had found out about that skill, he had told Naruto that it would help Naruto on long-distance missions. Naruto spent a few hours just looking at the moon and forgetting his worries and troubles. Whenever he was feeling nervous or troubled, Naruto had found a quick glance at the moon calmed him down. Once he had told this fact to Luna and said that it was quite funny as his name meant, Maelstrom of the Moon. For a moment Naruto swore he saw shock on Luna's face, but when he looked again she was smiling and agreeing that it was quite funny. Slowly Naruto's eyelids closed as the young ball of energy went off into dreamland. Where on earth am I? Naruto yelled into the air around him. The last thing that he could remember was falling asleep on the roof of the cottage, which definitely wasn't where he was now. Looking around him, all Naruto saw was the fallen ruins of some grand marble building, and that he was apparently in the courtyard of the building. Naruto closed his eyes and said to himself, "Okay, first things first, I'll figure out where I am and then I'll plan from there." Naruto opened his eyes facing the heavens to see the earth. Naruto started to freak for a second before he got control of himself and smirked. Going over the situation in his mind, Naruto almost laughed. Interesting genjutsu. I have to admit that it had me going for a second, but that earth is just a dead giveaway. Naruto then proceeded to try the release method for dispelling the genjutsu. Seeing that the sight around him was the same, Naruto started to grumble, "Okay, someone knows what they're doing when they created this illusion." However, there's more than one way to break an illusion. Naruto then grabbed a sharp rock that was lying on the ground and proceeded to cut his arm. I would advise you to stop trying to undo this, as it's not an illusion. A soft, gentle voice from behind Naruto said just as Naruto's cut was rapidly healing. Naruto spun around to face the owner of the voice and demand that she explain herself. However, Naruto's plan stopped when he gazed on the image of the woman in front of her. She was unearthly beautiful with long purple hair styled in ox horns with streamers. On her head rested a delicate diamond crown, while her face was gentle and caring with a crescent moon birthmark on her forehead. Her dress was simple and pure white. The woman smiled at Naruto and said softly, "My name is Queen Serenity, and I mean you no harm, Naruto. In fact, I have been waiting a long while to meet you." Naruto lowered his guard. For some reason his instincts were telling him to trust this queen in front of him. Still, where were they and why was a queen waiting to meet him? These two questions gnawed at the back of Naruto's mind, demanded to be answered. As if she saw his inner struggle, Queen Serenity calmly said, "I'm sure you want to know where we are and why I want to meet you." Serenity then sat down on a fallen marble pillar and motioned for Naruto to sit next to her. Trusting in his instincts, Naruto quietly complied with her request. "Now then, Naruto, we are currently in an area between the world of the living and the afterlife where our souls can meet and talk. You see, I died long ago when the kingdom whose ruins are shown around you was destroyed. Now for the second question that is likely on your mind, why does she want to meet with me, requires a backstory to understand." A sad look crossed Serenity's eyes and a tear fell as she remembered those days. However unpleasant these memories were for the late queen, Serenity was determined to not let them get the better of her and so continued her tale. "You see, Naruto, the universe is like a great tree with many branches. These branches or dimensions represent different chains of events that result in different things happening. I come from a different dimension than the one you live in. A long time ago, in my dimension, there was a large empire spanning across the entire solar system and I was its queen. But my empire was destroyed when a woman, who desired my daughter's boyfriend, made a pact with an entity of pure evil and together destroyed my empire. I had managed in the end to seal this entity along with the woman into another dimension. Seeing my world literally dying in front of my eyes, I used the last of my strength to send the soul of my daughter, her love, her friends, and the few surviving people of my kingdom to be reborn on the planet Earth. My daughter Serenity was reborn on Earth as Usagi Tuskino. When she was 14, she met my advisor Luna and gained the ability to use a portion of her royal power. She, along with her love and friends, fought against several evils that were threatening the people around her. During her last battle with a powerful creature known as Pharaoh 90, Usagi was caught in the aftershocks of the creature's death and sent to your dimension. She then met your father and later had you just before she died. So see, Naruto, I'm your grandmother." Naruto just sat there for a minute trying to process what this lady, his grandmother, was telling him. Hesitantly Naruto asked, "So I'm really your grandson and a prince?" Serenity just smiled and nodded her head towards her grandson before she pulled him into a hug. Naruto couldn't be happier that he had found out about his family. All that Luna would tell him when he asked was that his father was a high-ranking ninja and that she couldn't tell him more until certain conditions were met to assure his safety. Serenity then pulled Naruto back and had him face her before she seriously said, "Naruto, I don't have a lot of time left to talk to you, so I'll be brief. Shortly after you were born, Naruto, the Kyuubi was sealed inside of you. Ask Luna or that kind old Hokage to tell you the full story. The point of me telling you this is that having the Kyuubi within you jump-started your lunar royal powers. As a member of the lunar royal family, you have immense power naturally and power that you draw from the moon. Your powers have been active since that beast was sealed within you, constantly fighting against it. As a result of this constant usage, along with the purifying nature of our lunar energy, the Kyuubi has been killed. However, this great piece of news has left you with a very serious problem. Your body, on its own and by drawing from the moon, naturally generates the power of 12 Kages all the time. However, your body at its current state can't withstand the strain. Even with your healing ability that you took from the Kyuubi, your body will soon destroy itself due to its young age and not fully matured chakra network. But don't worry about it, my handsome grandson, I've been able to create a solution for your problem. Thanks to your excess power and my limited abilities, I was able to alter how you naturally generated your energy. You now have 3 states grandchildren. These states are in order of weakest to strongest: civilian, senshi, and royal. Your civilian form is limited to only the energy that your body naturally generates on its own. With the senshi state, you gain control of about 1/10 of the energy you draw from the moon, in addition to your natural strength. The final state, the royal state, grants you full access to the powers of the moon that you currently can call upon. As long as you don't go for days on end at your current training level, your senshi form will not cause your body harm. Your senshi form also grants you an armored outfit along with some powerful attacks that you will instinctively know. Moving on, you have to know about your royal state. It is incredibly powerful, but you can at your level of training only hand its power of at most 30 minutes before it harms your body. If you are ever forced to use it in a fight, end it as quick as possible. In order to reach these states, you have to say the transformation words for them. Don't worry yourself about the transformation phrase, when you wake up you will know them. Also, as these powers are going to be transmitted to your descendants, I want you to know that they will all learn on their own what their transformation phrase is. Even if their transformation phrase is the same as another person's and they utter the phrase, they won't be able to transform until they learn from within themselves what the phrase is. Knowing that their time was almost up, Serenity pulled Naruto into a hug again and whispered softly in his ear, "I love you, grandson. Your parents are very proud of you and how you've grown. Don't cry, dear one, this isn't the last time that we will meet each other. I'll pop in from time to time just to visit or when you really and honestly need me." The landscape around Naruto started to get foggy, like a mist was rolling in. Just before he felt his grandmother's arms stop hugging him, Naruto whispered, "I love you, grandma." Naruto woke up with the morning sun to find himself on the roof of his house. Pulling himself up into a sitting position, Naruto briefly wondered aloud, "What is that, all just a dream?" He immediately shook his head, knowing in his mind that what had happened had not been a dream but something more. While Naruto wanted to find out more about why he had carried the Kyuubi, he wanted to try out his new abilities a lot more. Naruto hopped off the roof and down to the ground before he took off running towards the meadow where he liked to practice. Stopping in the middle of the meadow, Naruto hurriedly looked around to make sure that no one was by chance near him. He then calmed down and remembered what his grandma had told him about accessing his powers. Naruto closed his eyes and began trying to meditate to find out his transformation phrase. It took a few minutes, but Naruto succeeded and found his senshi release phrase. Naruto was a little confused about the phrase and with a questioning tone said, "Moon crystal armor, energize?" As soon as the last word was uttered from Naruto's lips, a bright flash of silver light hid him from view. When the light ended only a second later, Naruto could feel the large surge in his power level and the sharpening of his senses. Wanting to know what he now looked like in his senshi form, Naruto quickly walked over to the edge of the meadow where there was a small stream. Looking back at Naruto from the water was a young boy dressed in a silvery white outfit that looked like something from the 1001 Nights that Luna sometimes read to him. The cape of the outfit was pinned with a small silver crescent moon. Due to the hood of the cape and the face mask of the outfit, one could only see Naruto's startling blue eyes. At Naruto's right side was a small curved silver dagger, while at his right side was an ornate but functional katana. For a moment or two Naruto just admired his new outfit, then he began to wonder at what special abilities it granted him. As soon as Naruto asked that question in his mind, knowledge of his abilities began downloading into his mind. The dagger at his side had an attack called Selene Shield Shatter. This attack would, depending on the amount of energy he put in it, destroy any barriers that a person created via a jutsu or magic. The sword at his right, besides having an incredibly sharp edge, had a mid-range attack called Serenity Slash. Finally, Naruto's longest range and most precise attack was summoning a magic bow and unleashing an Artemis arrow. Naruto was thinking about trying out one of his attacks, but then he heard a noise coming from behind him. While pulling out his sword, Naruto turned to face the cause of the noise. Suddenly a scent that Naruto unconsciously recognized floated by his now extremely sensitive nose. His brain putting a face to that scent, Naruto suddenly let out a cry of surprise. "Luna? Luna, if that's you, can you please come out now to where I can see you?" From behind a small bush, out walked Naruto's feline aunt. Luna, with a look of surprise on her face, sat down on her hind feet in front of Naruto and uttered out, "How did you dash?" At this point, Luna lost all ability to speak and just pointed to Naruto's new outfit silently. Naruto was confused for a second but then realized what she was referring to that had left her speechless. Within his mind, Naruto debated whether or not to tease her. However, Naruto decided that he didn't want to be so mean to Luna, especially since it looked like she was about to have a heart attack. "I fell asleep last night looking at the moon. I then found myself in some marble ruins that looked like they were on the moon. There I met the spirit of the last queen of a lunar kingdom who claimed to be my grandmother. She then says that I have had the kyubi placed in me, but that because of my royal heritage my body destroyed the kyubi. She told me that I would be able to transform into the senshi form as she called it and also a royal form, but that the royal form would be too dangerous for me for now." For a minute after Naruto stopped his explanation, both he and Luna stood in the field silently. Then Luna clapped her hands together in a little prayer and said, "Thank the goddess, I always was afraid that the kyubi would prevent you from showing your full heritage." Luna's face then turned serious as she looked Naruto directly in the eyes and continued to speak. "Naruto, de-transform immediately and speak of this and your heritage to no one. Today, while you're taking your genin exam, I will speak with the Hokage about this." Seeing that Naruto was about to complain, Luna said, "Naruto, this is very serious. Some people may take your new power as something given by that demon even though it's not. Also, your mother was known for her royal abilities even if she just claimed that they were a bloodline limit. While your mother was quite well-loved, she also had enemies who were jealous of her. Those enemies of hers plus the enemies of your father, if they put two and two together, if they see your royal abilities, will come after you to terminate you." Luna was now sporting a tear in her eye as she continued to speak to the now worried Naruto. "Please Naruto, I lost your grandmother and then your mother. I would die now if I lost you as well. I know that you have craved to be accepted by the village as a whole, but is that acceptance you crave worth dying so soon after you gain it? Soon you will be strong enough to protect yourself and all those that you hold dear from those who seek to harm you and them. Then you will have that acceptance you so crave, but you have to wait for that point." Naruto thought about what his aunt had to say. He quickly decided that having the respect of the villagers wasn't worth putting his life and the lives of his few precious people on the line. Naruto then closed his eyes and focused on de-transforming. After a minute, Naruto found the mental switch to flip so that he could return to his civilian form. A brief flash of light later and Naruto was standing in front of Luna. Naruto then reached down and gave Luna a big hug while he was happy, saying, "Thanks for the advice, Auntie Luna. I love you." At this, Luna smiled before replying that she loved him as well. This family bonding moment was broken when Naruto suddenly realized something and he yelled out, "I have to be at the academy in 10 minutes and I'm not ready." Luna suddenly found herself floating in the air as Naruto ran for the house to quickly pack what he needed for the test. She quickly backflipped in order to land on her feet and then turned to look at Naruto's dust trail. Suddenly Luna remembered an earlier time when she would watch a different blonde run about trying to get to class on time. Even though Usagi's death still hurt the black cat, thinking about her and how she could be found in her lovable son brought a tear to Luna's eye. Quietly Luna whispered, "You would be proud of him, my beloved princess. He's everything you said you wanted in a child, and I promise that I'll always help him reach his full potential." "Oh make. Guy, don't worry Naruto, I shall teach you how to perform the youthful poses that your mother was famous for." Luna pulls out a Smith & Wesson Model 29 and points it at Guy. Luna, what was that, Guy? Did you say something? Guy, damn you Kakashi for teaching the cat your hip ways. Chapter 2. Naruto roof-hopped as fast as he possibly could towards the ninja academy, hoping that he wouldn't arrive late for the exams. Still, he had to admit that if he was late he would at least have a good excuse. That would be if, as he realized, he could tell it to Irika. However, Luna had taught Naruto not to break his word once he gave it, and Naruto especially didn't want to break his word to Luna. Luckily for Naruto, he managed to make excellent time and got into the classroom before Irika. So, even though Naruto was technically late, Naruto didn't get in trouble for being late. Naruto managed to contain his excitement as he listened to what Irika was saying. Now then, class, today is the day you have all been waiting for. Today you will be able to show that you have what it takes to become a full-fledged ninja of Konoha. At this, almost the entire class broke out in cheers before Irika quieted them down. He then handed them a paper test and told them to start. Once he collected the completed tests, Irika then said to the class, after pulling out a clipboard, "Now I want you all to form a line and we'll head down to the gym. Once we get there, you will all be tested on your throwing accuracy, your taijutsu, and your stealth capabilities." It took a few minutes and the use of Irika's infamous, at least among students, big head jutsu to get the rambunctious 13-year-olds to form the line that Irika wanted. Once he had corralled the Cat's Air graduate hopefuls, Irika led them down to the gym where Mizuki was waiting for them. Once their throwing accuracy test, in which Naruto scored above average, was done, the students were told to sit on a bench. The students had been sitting for a few minutes while Mizuki and Irika talked to each other before Mizuki walked up and said, "Okay then, class, I'm sure you all want to know why you're sitting here. Well then, we've decided that, in order to test your taijutsu skills, we're going to have each of you fight a one-on-one match with your fellow students. Please note that you will not be allowed to use nin or genjutsu in the match, and you are also not allowed to use weapons of any kind. Now don't worry if you lose, this is just for us to see how good your pure taijutsu is, and while taijutsu is important to a ninja, it is not the only skill a ninja needs to succeed." Since only one match was being held at a time, the students not currently fighting were just shooting the breeze with their friends. Naruto was sitting with his legs in a lotus meditation position with his hands crossed over his chest, deep in thought. However much Naruto wanted to think about what he had found out about his life, his musings were quickly interrupted by Kiba, who yelled at Naruto saying, "Hey Moonfish, what happened this morning? Did your funny feline excuse for an ant having trouble with a hairball or something?" Not wanting Kiba to get the last laugh or insult Luna, Naruto fired back, "What would you know about dog breath? After all, your owner Akamaru knows that you're too stupid to understand the spoken language." Kiba's mouth was wide open in shock as his and Naruto's classmates started laughing at him. Turning to see Naruto smiling at him with laughter in his eyes, Kiba shook his head and thought to himself, "That's a point to you, my friend." Although Kiba and Naruto seemed to fight like cats and dogs, the two were reasonably good friends. Suddenly Naruto and Kiba heard Mizuki call out, "Will Naruto Tuskino and Kiba Inuzuka please come up for their fight?" At this the two friends got up and smiled at each other as they approached the ring. Once the two of them had reached their ends of the ring, turned to face each other, each confident of their victory over their friend. Mizuki just looked at the two and said, "You both know the rules for this match, begin." The two boys shot at each other and began to ferociously attack each other. Both the Inuzuka and the newer Tuskino family styles were animalistic in their attacks. It seemed to the onlookers that Naruto and Kiba were trying to claw each other's throats out. However, Kiba spent most of his taijutsu practice time at home and in class working with Akamaru. This fact meant that Naruto, who was faster and more unpredictable, was able to exploit several holes in Kiba's defense that would normally be protected by Akamaru. Finally, Naruto ended the fight by exploiting one of the holes in Kiba's defense. Naruto delivered a powerful kick to the other boy's ribs with one foot and another kick to Kiba's head. Naruto then backflipped off of Kiba, who was falling to the floor unconscious, to land on the ground hunched over on his back legs like a cat. A couple of the students who had been watching the fight clapped and Irika smiled, saying, "Very good, Naruto. Now can you bring Kiba over here so that I can wake him up? After all, do you want to have a rematch after class with an angry Kiba and Akamaru because you caused them to miss the rest of the test now, do you?" When Naruto heard this, he just grumbled a bit and dragged Kiba over to the sidelines. Naruto was starting to look around where he was for something to wake Kiba up when a hand went in front of his face. In the hand was a small container of smelling salts. Looking down the arm attached to the hand, Naruto saw that it was Ino who had gotten the salt for him. With a quick thank you, Naruto grabbed the container from Ino and promptly used it to get Kiba up. Ino and Naruto then helped the still wobbly Kiba get over to the bench. Ino then had to leave for her match against one of the other girls in class. Kiba then, while only paying half attention to the fight going on, turned to face Naruto and said, "Good fight there, Naruto." Kiba then smiled and said, "But you do realize, Moonfish, that if I was allowed to have Akamaru with me in the fight, we would have cleaned your clock." Naruto playfully shook his head and said, "I must have hit you harder than I realized, dog breath. You're suffering from delusions brought on by head trauma." The two rivals and best buds stopped their good-natured teasing to see Ino knock out her opponent. The two boys knew that Ino would win, as her opponent was one of, besides Sakura Hirano, Sasuke's biggest fangirls. Although it annoyed the two boys that Ino, who was kind of their friend, was an Uchiha fangirls, they knew that at least Ino didn't let her crush distract her too much from her training, which was more than most girls could say. After the last two students had their match, everyone headed outside to where some genin, in the most desired D-ranked mission available that day, had set up a very complex obstacle course. Irika walked in front of the class and then said in his stern teaching voice, "All right, class. As you can see, behind me is a large obstacle course. Inside of this course are numerous non-lethal traps and noisemakers. You must go through the obstacle course to the other end, where there is a scroll inside a blood seal with your name on it placed by me. After you've retrieved the scroll, you are to make your way back through the course to here where you will give me the scroll. Now then, before I start calling out names, there are a few things that you should know about this course. You will be graded on how fast you complete this course and how silently you complete it. All along the course are various things set up that, if disturbed, will cause a bell to be rung. Also, if you activate a trap and are caught by it, you will automatically fail this part of the test." Irika then let that information sink into his students' brains, then he started calling people to run the course. The first few people he had called up were abysmal failures, getting caught by the first of 30 non-lethal traps. The next person managed to get through the course, but rang the bell a few times and took a good while to complete. Most of the class either completely failed the course, rang the bell a lot of times, or rang the bell a few times and took a very long time to complete the course. However, Naruto just had to be difficult and disrupt the set pattern by finishing the course in the fastest time without ringing the bell once. A few of Sasuke's fangirls were baffled that Naruto was able to complete the course so well compared to Sasuke, who was only average in the course. Finally, the students were herded into the classroom where they waited to be called for their final test. After a few minutes, Naruto's name was called and the smiling blonde boy was led by Irika to a separate room for his testing. Irika closed the door and with a smile on his face said to Naruto, "Okay Naruto, I want you to use the substitution jutsu, the hedge jutsu, to become the Hokage, and create at least 2 clones." Naruto was confident about the substitution and the hedge jutsu, but he was nervous about the clones. Even with his hours of training for years, he still was pathetic with the clone jutsu. Still, he was so close to becoming a ninja, so Naruto left it up to chance and tried his best. His substitution jutsu was quite impressive as he switched with a potted plant on the other side of the room. Next, Naruto hedged into the Hokage and was given a simple nod from Irika showing that he had passed. Finally, Naruto performed the clone jutsu and closed his eyes. Naruto opened his eyes to see 2 clones around him. One could pass as him if a person's eyesight was less than great. The other clone looked like a badly burnt large roast. Naruto cringed at the sight and turned to face Irika and asked, "Do I become a ninja or not, Irika?" Irika scratched his head, thought about it for a moment, and then said, "While your clone technique is, to be blunt, the worst in the history of the Ninja Academy, your other skills are enough to make it up. Therefore it is my pleasure to declare you a new ninja of Konoha." Naruto practically jumped up and down when he heard the news that he had graduated. He watched as Irika put his hand in the box containing the 4 head protectors for the graduates and pulled out a protector. Irika then handed the 4-head protector to Naruto, who eagerly put it on his forehead. Naruto then left the academy after hearing Irika tell him when to show up for team placements. Upon arriving at his and Luna's home, Naruto found that Luna had left him a note on the table. Picking up the note, Naruto read, "Dear Naruto, sorry I'm not here to greet you when you get home from your genin exam. It doesn't matter to me whether you pass or not as long as you do your best at it. However, I do sincerely hope that you pass your exam, as I know how much you want to be a ninja. I've picked up some groceries that we were out of and put them away. I'm now heading over to visit the Hokage to talk about the you-know-what. However, you know how busy the Hokage can be, so it might take a while to talk with him. Hopefully I won't leave you here alone for too long and I won't be mistaken for that hellbeast Tora again. Love, Auntie Luna." Naruto smiled after he read the note and placed it back on the table. It still amazed him that people could mistake his Aunt Luna for the most feared nightmare of all D-ranked missions. The last moron who had made that mistake was still walking funny from Aunt Luna's 1,000 years of pain technique, which involved shoving the poor victim's own arm up their own butt. Not even Saratobi had been able to figure out she did that on one of his own ninja, and in cat form no less. Naruto then sat at the dinner table trying to decide what he should do while he waited for Luna to return to the house. Suddenly a thought came to Naruto's mind that he said out loud, "Hey, Luna doesn't want me to reveal my royal powers to anyone until she can talk to me. However, she never said anything against me practicing my powers as long as I don't get caught." At this, Naruto rubbed his hands together like the archetypical troublemaker before he ran out the door to go to one of his favorite training fields. Naruto ran for a few minutes until he reached a meadow that was far away from any home or training ground in Konoha. Once there and Naruto made sure that no one was around, Naruto grinned and shouted out, "Moon Crystal Armor, energize!" Naruto felt the now familiar power of his senshi form flow into himself, leaving him stronger than any two average jonins. Naruto then said to himself after he saw that he was in the same exact outfit as last time, "You know, if I'm not supposed to reveal that this is me, how on earth can I use this form to fight other ninjas?" At that thought, Naruto crossed his arms across his chest and thought for a few minutes. Then he snapped his fingers when the answer came to him. "I know. I can go by an alias. Now what's a good name for this form? Mighty Moon, no, that name's horrible. Should I go as a Serenity soldier? No, that just isn't right for me." Naruto thought long and hard about his options for a few minutes before he said, "I know. I'll go by the name Moonlight Knight. It fits as it connects me to the moon, which is where I get my extra power, and it shows my royal heritage with the noble title." The newly named Moonlight Knight then thought about the next issue he should solve. One thing that he hadn't gotten to test with his senshi form, which was one of many things, was if he could use his ninja skills in the senshi form. To start this off, Naruto performed a simple substitution jutsu. After running through his, admittedly small, collection of jutsu, Naruto found that he couldn't use his hedge jutsu and that the clone jutsu was just as bad as his untransformed state. Naruto spent a few hours going over his skills and getting used to his senses and reflex while in senshi form. He was about to go home when his enhanced ears heard the sound of maniacal laughter. Naruto, while still in his senshi form, quietly approached the source of the laughter to see Mizuki running with a large scroll on his back and a sadistic grin on his face. Naruto thought about what to do when he heard Mizuki say something that made up Naruto's mind. "Once I deliver this to Lord Orochimaru, I'll become even more powerful than that old fool of a Hokage." Naruto recognized that name from his history class and knew that, whatever it was that Mizuki had on his back, could not reach the most vile and infamous traitor that Konoha had ever produced. From his position on a large tree branch above Mizuki, Naruto pulled out 3 shuriken and let them fly at a ferocious speed. Mizuki barely sensed the shuriken in time to avoid a fatal encounter involving them and the back of his head. However, while Mizuki did avoid death, he lost several locks of hair and had his right ear cut. "Ahag!" Mizuki cried out, reflexively protecting his bleeding ear with his right hand. Enraged and with a touch of madness in his eyes, Mizuki yelled out into the night, "Who's the bastard who did this? Whoever did this should reveal themselves to me right now, and I might just grant them a quick death." At this, Naruto smirked and said, thus drawing attention to his location on the branch, "I did that, you traitor." Mizuki looked at Naruto standing there with one hand on the trunk of the tree and the full moon glowing behind him and yelled out, "I just want to know, before I kill you, just who the devil are you?" Although a little nervous due to the fact that he had never been in a deathmatch before, Naruto confidently answered back, "I'm the Moonlight Knight. Just so that you know, I shall be the last person you meet before you meet the devil in hell." With the pleasantries dispensed with, Mizuki started off their fight to the death. He pulled out a huge windmill shuriken from a small seal on his wrist and sent it flying at Naruto. Naruto waited calmly for the shuriken to come to him as he planned out his next few moves, eternally grateful now that Luna had made him play those strategy war games. Just as Mizuki was about to smirk at the thought that his oversized shuriken would hit Naruto, Naruto quickly drew his sword and quickly sliced the shuriken in half. While Mizuki was shocked at the sight, Naruto just smirked and yelled out, "Not good enough, now why don't you try my attack, Serenity Slash?" With that, Naruto performed a quick horizontal slash and a wave of silver energy went flying in the shape of a crescent moon towards Mizuki at extreme speeds. Mizuki instinctively knew that the Serenity Slash, if it hit him, would kill him, no ifs, ands, or buts. The traitor leaned back and rolled quickly to the left. Mizuki was rolling away so fast that he lost track of where he was in the forest and hit himself against a tree. While the tree didn't do any lasting damage, it did stun Mizuki. This stunning, along with the shock at seeing the Serenity Slash dig into the ground about a foot before exploding, leaving a 2-foot wide and several feet long crater in the ground, gave Naruto the time he needed to get down from the tree and stab Mizuki's heart. The last thing Mizuki saw before his eyes closed forever was Naruto de-transforming back into his regular form. Once he dropped out of his Senshi form, Naruto came out of his adrenaline rush and fell down on the ground in shock at what he had done. Naruto, while trained to be a ninja and had known that this would eventually happen, was still a young teenage boy who had just taken his first human life. Naruto raised his hands and looked slowly between them and Mizuki's still warm body and back again for a few minutes. He then leaned over and heaved up the snack that he had before training. Naruto, after he was done emptying his stomach, smacked his face and shakily said, "Get a grip, Naruto. You knew that this was eventually going to happen when you signed up to be a ninja. You've stopped a traitor from giving something that is of obvious importance to one of the greatest criminals out there. What was it that the old man told you about this situation? He said one can't restore or return what was lost, only continue on and never forget about it, never forgive themselves should they forget the pain." Naruto approached Mizuki's corpse and turned his gaze to the scroll on Mizuki's back. Speaking to himself again in a very tired voice, "Come on, Naruto, you just have to return this scroll to the Hokage and then put this behind you." Naruto took the scroll from Mizuki's back and started walking off towards the Hokage tower. He was about to leave the area when he shook his head and returned to Mizuki's body. Traitor or not, Naruto knew that he just couldn't leave the body there in the field exposed. With a great deal of effort, Naruto picked up the body and carried it bridal style back to the village. It was 10 minutes after Naruto started walking towards the tower that he ran into Iruka and Anko, who had teamed up with Iruka to find Mizuki and the scroll. The Chunin and Jonin took one look at the blank look on Naruto's face, the scroll on his back, Mizuki's body, and figured out that Naruto had stopped Mizuki. Iruka promptly sealed the body of his deceased, now ex-friend, and then led Naruto straight to the Hokage. In the Hokage's office when Iruka and Naruto arrived, there was a very worried Sarutobi and Luna. Both of them quickly grew sadder and more worried when Naruto told them that he had killed Mizuki after he heard him talking about giving the scroll that was on Mizuki's back to Orochimaru. Sarutobi, sensing that Naruto was leaving something out of his report, dismissed Iruka after telling the worried Chunin that the team lists would be on the Chunin's desk at the end of the week. Once Iruka had closed the door, Sarutobi turned to Naruto and said in his worried grandfather voice, "Now then, Naruto. What was it that you were leaving out of your report?" At this, Naruto's surprise showed for a moment before he realized that the Hokage had been around and had been a ninja since, according to Luna, before his father had been born. Naruto then said, "Everything is as I reported it. However, I was training in my Senshi form at the time Mizuki encountered me, and it was with the sword I have in Senshi form that I slew Mizuki." Sarutobi figured how hard it must be for Naruto to use something he had been so excited about earlier today to take another person's life. The kind old ninja then got out of his chair and gave Naruto a comforting hug. Softly, the old Hokage whispered in Naruto's ear, "I know this is difficult for you, Naruto. Just remember this, you have been given great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. Tonight you wisely used the power that you have to protect this village from a very dangerous enemy. That scroll you recovered contains the most powerful jutsu known in this village, and you prevented it from going to a man who would use it to kill the people of this village." Sarutobi ended the hug and sat back down in his chair. This allowed Luna, who had now transformed into her human form, to walk up to Naruto and give him a hug. She also handed some words of comfort to say to her. "Naruto, I want to tell you something about your mother. When she first received the ability to access her powers, your mother was quite scared by it. I can't tell you how many nights she would cry herself to sleep because she didn't want the power she was burdened with. But your mother was able to find the courage and strength within herself to accept her burden and use it to protect others. I'll tell you something about Naruto. I see that same courage and strength that I saw within your mother within you as well. And just like your mother, you have your friends who will help you through this and all other challenges." Naruto now had a smile on his face. He was still upset and in pain due to what had happened with Mizuki, but he no longer was tormented by it. Knowing that he had Aunt Luna, Old Man Sarutobi, Irika, and even Kiba and Ino, backing him up, had returned Naruto's spirits to him. Remembering the scroll on his back, Naruto swung it around and into his hands before he handed it over to Sarutobi. Sarutobi gladly accepts the scroll from Naruto before putting it by his desk. Lighting up his pipe, Sarutobi let out a puff of smoke before he started talking. "Naruto, in all of the commotion today, we've never gotten to explain to you the full situation with the Kyuubi. You see, Naruto, when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, it was like a force of nature. None of our jutsu slowed the beast down or even scratched it. Even at his strongest, the Yondaime Hokage could only hope to seal the foul demon. To this day, I am convinced that only one person in history could have hoped to have truly slain that beast once and for all on that day. That person was your mother, Usagi Tuskino Namikaze. However, about a month before you were born, your mother was attacked and badly wounded by rogue ninjas from IWA. Both you and your mother lived through the attack, as your standing here shows, but your mother was badly wounded. At the time the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, your mother had been confined to her hospital bed due to a horrible infection that had set in as well as the lingering effects of poison from the attacker's weapons. Your mother had somehow established an empathic connection with almost all the ninjas of Konoha. The mental shock of all of their deaths by the Kyuubi, plus her injuries, prevented her from living more than a few minutes after your birth. Left with no other hope, your father Minato Namikaze took you and used the dead demon-consuming seal to lock the Kyuubi forever within you at the price of his soul. Yes, Naruto, your father Minato Namikaze was the Yondaime Hokage. I had your last name changed to your mother's maiden name to help protect you from your father's enemies. I can understand if you want to take the Namikaze name again, but please don't do so until you are at least a Chunin so that I can rest easier knowing that you can protect yourself from your father's enemies." Naruto closed his eyes for a few minutes to fully digest what Sarutobi had told him. He had for a while suspected that he had some sort of blood connection to the Yondaime due to how much they looked alike and how little information about the Yondaime's family was available. However, he had figured that their relationship was something like the Yondaime being an uncle or cousin to him, not that the Yondaime was his father. While other boys might have been angry at Yondaime if they were in his position due to what his old man had done to him, Naruto wasn't angry at all. It was the only way to protect the village, and he would have never respected his father if his father had chosen someone else instead of him to bear the burden of the Kyuubi. Besides, the Kyuubi was dead thanks to the power of his mother that flowed through his veins. Opening his eyes, Naruto looked directly into Sarutobi's eyes and said, "I understand why my father did what he did. I would have cursed him if he had dared to choose someone besides his own flesh and blood to bear the burden. Don't you worry about me going by my father's clan name anymore, Sarutobi. I belong to the Tuskino clan, and it is the Tuskino clan, not the Namikaze clan, that I plan to make into the greatest ninja clan. I would greatly appreciate it if you would transfer any and all holdings my parents left me in the Namikaze name over to the Tuskino family. I may respect and admire my parents, but I will not rest on what they have done, and I will not have people respect me just for what they did." With that said, Naruto bowed his head in farewell before leaving to go home. About 3 minutes after Naruto left to go home, Luna left to join her nephew with a scroll in her mouth. The scroll contained a few techniques that Sarutobi had written down and had asked Luna to give to Naruto. On the way out the door of the tower, Luna passed by a jonin who waved at her. Luna recognized jonin as one of the ninjas that Usagi had been very good friends with. If Luna could read the jonin's mind, then she would know that the jonin was determined to get Naruto as part of their genin team and would accept no other answer but yes. In the classroom about 2 weeks later, all of the new genin were assembled and waiting for Iraka to come in and tell them which teams they were going into. Naruto was thinking back to the 4 jutsus on that scroll that Sarutobi had given to Luna. On the scroll was Earth Release, Inner Head Decapitation Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, which was a clone technique that he could actually do, Great Clone Explosion Jutsu, and Shadow Clone Kunai Jutsu. Currently Naruto was only able to perform the first 2 techniques on the scroll, but he was happy with his progress. Naruto was so into his thoughts that he missed Iraka coming into the room and Iraka's speech. When Naruto stopped musing on the jutsus that Sarutobi had given him, Iraka was partway through the list of teams. Now then, Team 7, we have Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Shino Aburame. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. Team 8 is Hinata Hyuga, Shoji Akimichi, and Shikamaru Nara. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. And finally, for Team 10 we have Naruto Tuskino, Ino Yamanaka, and Kiba Inuzuka. Team 10's jonin sensei will be Anko Mitarashi. Chapter 3. SM Verse. It was a place that was both within and without normal space/time. Off to the side of the royal palace of Pluto was a little building shaped like the Oracle of Rome. Within this inconspicuous building was the door to the cavern that held the time gates. Within that cavern stood a single figure in front of the time gates. That figure was Setsuna Mayo, the senshi of Pluto and princess of the same world. For the past month Setsuna had been frantically standing in front of the time gates, using every trick in her knowledge to manipulate the time gates to search for her missing princess. Usagi and Luna's bodies had never been found after the explosion of Pharaoh 90. This, plus the fact that Setsuna could still feel her connection of servitude to the royal moon family, told Setsuna that Usagi must still be alive. Setsuna had searched the time stream as far back as the Precambrian period and as far forward as the Imperium of Man in the 40th millennium. But, for all of her searching, Setsuna had found no trace of the missing moon princess. This depressing fact had Setsuna to believe that Usagi must have been thrown out of the time stream altogether and ended up in a different dimension. This thought saddened Setsuna greatly. She had no experience with searching through alternate dimensions, and the books in her library only talked about how to travel to a known point in another dimension. However, even though it looked hopeless to Setsuna, she was determined to succeed. The scouts had been forced to tell the Tuskinos about the fact that Usagi was Sailor Moon and why Usagi was missing. The pained look on her princess parents' faces when Setsuna had to tell them that she didn't know when their daughter would be back home always haunted her mind. Setsuna would have sold her soul to Pharaoh 90 if she could give the Tuskino family their daughter back. Suddenly Setsuna felt the time gates sense a burst of Lunarian royal power. However, the burst was too short for Setsuna to find more than the hyperdimensional area code that the burst came from. Even so, this burst made Setsuna's heart fill with joy. She was closer than ever to finding where Usagi was. She would locate the particular dimension soon enough. Naruto verse. Naruto, Ino, and Kiba did not have to wait long to meet their new jonin instructor. As soon as Iraka had announced Anko's name, Anko walked through the classroom door in her trademark jacket and fishnet outfit, sporting her grin that made most chunin want to run away. Anko pulled out a stick of dango and ate it in front of the class, looking like she didn't have a care in the world. One of the more pathetic of the new genins started laughing at Anko and her outfit. However, any humorous mood was quickly killed as Anko took the now bare dango stick and lazily flicked it at the fool. That particular genin found the stick embedded in his seat a few millimeters from something he really didn't want to lose. Anko just smirked and yelled out, "Alright Team 10. Gear up and meet me on the roof in 5 minutes or I'll feed you to my favorite pet snake." Anko then body flickered away, leaving her new victims, air students, to rush out the door. Iraka just sweetly dropped as he saw the look of panic on the faces of the two troublemakers and their friend. Turning to face the rest of his class, Iraka looked to see the whole class suddenly very nervous at the thought of their own teachers. Anko Mitarashi was casually leaning against the side of a shed that was on the roof and thought about the past as she waited for her students to appear. Usagi was the only person who not only trusted her after Orochimaru deserted, but Usagi had seen past her mask and seen the pain that Anko was in. Usagi had always been there for her, and Anko would slit her own throat if she couldn't help Usagi's only son become the best that he could be. She dropped out of her musings as she watched her 3 new students rush onto the roof. Anko motioned with a tilt of her head for her 3 genins to sit down in front of her. Seeing her students sitting down, Anko said, "Alright maggots, we're going to be working with each other until either you guys get promoted or you act stupid and get yourselves killed. I want to know what you like, what you dislike, what your hobbies are, and what your dream is." Ino Yamanaka at this point raised her hand as if to ask a question. Anko rolled her head and eyes before saying, "If you want to know something, just ask." Ino looked sheepish for a moment before she said, "Anko-sensei? Could you answer the questions first? We know a little bit about each other, but we know nothing about you except for your name." Anko smirked and said after getting straight into Ino's face and giving Ino her patented creepy smile, "So the gossip girl wants to know about little old me, eh?" Anko then went back to leaning against the shed and said, "Very well then, gossip girl. I like dango and seeing my enemy's blood spilled. I hate weak female ninjas who only chase after boys. My hobbies, well, I like spending time in the forest of death. As for my dreams, well, I want to bring that bastard Orochimaru to justice." Anko, with yet another dango stick in her hand, pointed to Ino and said, "Alright gossip girl, spill your guts or I'll do it for you." Ino gulped and then quickly said, "My name is Ino Yamanaka, I like my friends, flowers, and Sasuke. I dislike Forehead Girl and most of the other girls in our class. My hobbies are working in my family's flower shop and reading psychology books. My dream is to become a respectable ninja and get a strong husband." It was implied by Ino's voice and posture that she hoped her strong husband would be Sasuke Uchiha. Anko grunted and said, "Okay dog boy, you know the drill." At this Kiba growled because of the insult before he started speaking. "My name is Kiba Inuzuka, I like my partner Akamaru and playing jokes. I dislike Sasuke Uchiha and people who make fun of others. My hobbies are pulling off a good prank and training with Akamaru. I have a dream of becoming a good leader for my clan." Naruto decided to beat Anko to the punch and said, "My name's Naruto Tuskino, I like my Aunt Luna and a few other people around the village. I hate people who don't look at a situation from all angles, and I absolutely despise people who expect to have things handed to them on a platter because of who their parents were. My hobbies are training and playing strategy games. My dream is to have a family and establish the Tuskino clan as the most premier ninja clan on the continent." Inside her mind, Anko went over what her students had told her with what she knew from her files on them. Boy, is this a very interesting team I've been given. That Yamanaka girl is a fangirl, no doubt about it. Luckily for me, it seems that her crush is not the alpha and omega of her existence like some of the worst cases, and I can probably shape her up into a decent genjutsu mistress. The Inuzuka, he's a bit of a toughie to place. Best bet is to teach him some more stealth techniques and help him with a few non-clan jutsus to mix up his abilities a bit. Naruto, he is just as determined as I thought he would be and could very well succeed at his dream. With the list of jutsus that the Hokage gave the boy in his awakened bloodline, I won't need to teach the boy any jutsus for a while. For him, I should just spar with him and teach him to work in a team better." Team 10 was nervously watching their new teacher as she stood there in thought. A slight shiver went down their spines as they saw Anko smirk and say, "Alright maggots, it's time for me to give you your final test." At this, Ino blurted out, "What on earth do you mean by our final test?" Anko closed her eyes, smiled at her team, and said, "You honestly didn't think that passing the pathetically easy test you were given automatically made you a ninja, did you? Each jonin is expected to give their students one final test before they accept the genin team as their students. If the genins fail the test, then the genins are sent back to the academy." The 3 young teens turned to look at each other and figured that they wouldn't like where this was going. Anko's smile got even brighter as she said, "Your exam is going to be different and far more challenging than any other team's test. You are going to take these paint cans dash." At this point, Anko pulled out some full paint cans from behind her back, "and you 3 are going to each write your initials on all the faces of all 4 Hokages on the monument. After you do that, then all 4, and yes, I'm including the must then make it back to this rooftop before sundown. If even one of you is caught, you will all fail this test. Oh, and just so that you know, your initials have to be able to be seen from the village. With that said, Anko's body flickered away, leaving the paint cans with the shocked kids. Kiba smacked his hand against the ground and yelled out, "What is wrong with our sensei? How on earth does she honestly expect all of us to graffiti our names on all 4 of the Hokage's faces, especially graffiti them large enough to be seen by the village? We'll be caught by our fellow ninjas and sent back to the academy before we can start on the Night Aim's face." Ino was just depressed and said in a defeated tone, "Not only that, but my parents will ground me for forever once we're caught. It won't matter if we're following our sensei's orders or not." Naruto listened to his comrades complain about the hopelessness of the task, before he finally had enough of their complaining and yelled at them, "What is with you two in this attitude? We haven't even tried yet and you're already going back to the academy." At this, Kiba turned his head and angrily answered Naruto, "Are you brain-dead, moonfish? Do you really expect us to pull something like this off and actually get away with it?" Naruto smiled and said, "Don't worry, dog breath, the task is actually easier than you believe." Turning to Ino, Naruto said, "Ino, can you cast a weak low-level field genjutsu?" Ino blinked her eyes before she answered Naruto, hoping that the unpredictable boy actually had a plan. "Yeah, I can cast a low-level field genjutsu. It would leave me almost completely drained, but I can do it." Naruto smiled as he was now sure that the half-baked plan he was cooking would actually work. He then motioned for Ino and Kiba to come closer to him and he pulled out a detailed map of Konoha. Naruto then began to confidently dictate his plan. "Alright then, the objective before us, in this mission, is to graffiti the monument and not get caught. Although the situation looks hopeless, we have several advantages going into this situation. The biggest advantage we have is that we are aware of our opposition and they aren't aware of us." At this, Kiba and Ino blinked their eyes in unison before motioning for Naruto to continue. "If you pay any real attention to the ninja on guard duty in the village, you will see that they switch patrols 4 times during the day. These times being midnight, 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. It's currently 3:30 p.m. That means that if we take out the guards now in a surprise attack, we would then have 2 hours and a half till guard changes in which to work undisturbed. With Ino placing the weak genjutsu, we won't have trouble with people from the village as they won't think to check the monument for one." The plan was starting to make sense to Naruto comrades, but Kiba saw a serious problem with the plan. "Moonfish, are you a complete idiot? Your whole plan revolves around us getting rid of the guards in a sneak attack. They outnumber us and are far more trained than us. We can't beat them without alerting security." Naruto now had a mischievous grin on his face as he said, "Remember the day, Kiba, 2 years ago when you were trying to do a dual hedge with Akamaru?" Kiba started to shiver and Ino started to see red. They both remembered that day. Kiba had tried to hedge both himself and Akamaru at the same time, but he was new and transformed himself and Akamaru into young naked girls. Kiba had never had such a ferocious beatdown in his life. Kiba suddenly got where Naruto was going with this and said, "No way in hell, Naruto. I will not transform into a naked girl to distract the guards. Get Ino to do it, Naruto. After all, that is what they spend most of the time teaching the girls." Akamaru jumped off of Kiba's head just before Ino slammed her first straight into the top of Kiba's head. Naruto just shook his head and said, "Ino has to do the genjutsu because neither of us can. Also, of the 2 of us, you're the one who was bragging about how well you aced the hedge part of the test while I only scored above average." Kiba knew that Naruto had backed him into a corner and both of them knew it. Both he and Naruto had a considerable deal of pride, but they would also back up what they boasted about. However, this was bad for Kiba as Naruto had basically forced him to do the task or admit to not being as good as he claimed to be, and Kiba just couldn't have that happen. So, grudgingly, Kiba agreed to be the one to knock out the guards. Seeing that his comrades would follow his plan, Naruto said, "Alright then. When Kiba knocks out the guards, I'll tie them up. Then we have Ino cast the genjutsu. Since she'll be drained from that and I'm the fastest runner, I will be carrying Ino on my back while we paint the monument. This way, if we get caught, Ino won't be left behind." Naruto stood up and looked firmly into Kiba and Ino's eyes, his strength of will shining so brightly that his friends felt their worries wash away from themselves. Naruto held his hand out in front of him and made a fist. Naruto then said, "Are you willing to risk it all with me? Are you ready to show our sensei and this village as a whole that you're ready to be a ninja, or are you going to let this opportunity pass you by? I know that we all have the power and skill needed to pull this off. We have been given all that we need to do this and any other task that we may be given. Will you join me in proving this, or will you let your self-doubt prevent you from reaching our goal?" Both Ino and Kiba were heavily moved by Naruto's little speech. Ino was starting to see Naruto in a different light, instead of just one of the average Joes of the class like she had before. Kiba wondered where Naruto kept this side of himself that seemed to inspire everyone. Kiba got up off his butt and said gruffly with his hands in his coat, "What the hell? I'm in on this crazy plan of yours. Besides, after all of my bragging at home, my sister would have permanent teasing material if I fail this test." Ino shook her head and said, "There's no way I'm going to let Forehead Girl become a ninja simply because I was given a harder test than her." Naruto looked at both of his friends turned teammates. He had honestly been nervous at even suggesting such a plan, but then he remembered a quote attributed to Father Minato, "There are no weak soldiers under a valiant commander." While he didn't consider himself to be a valiant commander, Naruto hoped that the principle behind the saying would hold true. Seeing that his friends believed that they could pull off his quickly thrown together plan gave Naruto hope that they could pull it off. Not showing his doubt, Naruto raised his first in and yelled, "Watch out world, cause Team 10 is on the move." Both Ino and Kiba joined in his shout before they all grabbed a paint can and took off towards the monument. In the shadows stood Anko, whose smile was threatening to burst into full-blown laughter. It was an open secret in the higher-up ranks that each Jonin would test their Genin team on some concept that they held dear. Kakashi was famous for his emphasis on teamwork and so used the multi-purpose spell test. Her test was very different from the copycats, or even most other Jonins for that matter. Due to growing up during the last Shinobi War and having to deal with the betrayal of her teacher, Anko held determination and perseverance in high esteem. For her test, Anko had constructed a scenario that the Genin would never expect. However, it was a scenario that would often come up in the life of a ninja. Anko had given her 3 would-be students a seemingly impossible task to perform in very little time in which to pull it off. Then she had just sat back and waited to see their reactions. Kiba's initial reaction had upset Anko, but Naruto had managed to pull the boy out of his defeatist mood. As Naruto laid out his plans, Anko couldn't help but be impressed with the little prince. Naruto had looked over her scenario like it was a board game and analyzed Team 10's opposition. At first she was going to just appear and explain the test to them and tell her team that they passed. However, as Naruto listed all of the variables and broke down the plan to his comrades, Anko decided to let them go for it. It would show that arrogant idiot of a council-appointed security chief how badly he had let things slip on internal village security. Anko looked up at the heavens and let out a sigh before she said, "My friends, you would be so proud of how your son has turned out. Usagi, he has your gentleness and compassion. Minato, he has your commanding will and your tactical mind. When you put those together in your son, you two gave birth to a person who can lead armies into the depths of hell and his soldiers would gladly follow him." She let out a smirk and said, "He also has both of your stubborn streaks." Who else but Naruto would declare that he would make a small unknown clan into the most respected clan on the continent? Anko then body flickered away to get a good seat for the spectacle the 3 Genin were planning. It was the talk of the town for days. Many of the people just could not believe that 3 Genin would pull such a stunt, or even the fact that they pulled it off in the first place for that matter. Once it was circulated that the Genin did it because it was a test by their sensei Anko Mitarashi, some people were calling for her to be demoted to Genin at least. Luckily for Team 10, this was only being called for by a few councilmen who had lost major political capital in this debacle. After he had stopped rolling on the ground laughing his ass off, Sarutobi had launched a full investigation on the state of security within Konoha. Over several days the security investigation led to some facts that greatly startled Sarutobi to his core. Apparently, his old teammates, Danzo, and a few of the more radical councilmen were funneling resources away from several vital areas of Konoha security. They were using the resources to build up support for what looked like a takeover of Konoha in order to make Konoha more like some of the more militant hidden villages. Two of the major projects that the conspirators were running were Ni and Rei. No was originally a suborganization within ANBU, but had been reorganized as their private army after he had disbanded the group 22 years ago. Rei was a project that enraged Sarutobi when he thought about what he read about it. Apparently, they were using Orochimaru's notes on human experimentation to create bloodlines and infuse them into ninja loyal to them. When Sarutobi looked over the photos of the poor souls who were suffering under Rei, he thanked Anko for letting Team 10 continue to perform the mission she had given them. If it wasn't for them vandalizing the monument, then this travesty would never have been brought to light. Still, it hurt Sarutobi's heart to find out what his friends had been planning to do. They had been his oldest friends and had been with him since he had become a ninja. It was with a heavy heart that Sarutobi sentenced them and the rest of their co-conspirators to death for treason against Konoha. Unfortunately, on the night before the execution was supposed to take place, the conspirators managed to pull off a successful jailbreak. Sarutobi had no idea of where the fallen, as the public was calling the group, had fled to after their escape. But now that the scandal is all over and the old leader is feeling every day of his age, Sarutobi knew that he needed to do something to cheer himself up, but he didn't know where to look. He no longer had his old friends to fall back on, his wife was long dead, and his only two loyal students were miles away from the village. Sarutobi thought about heading home, but stopped himself. Asuma was currently in a very foul mood that he had ordered the execution of Asuma's godparents. Even though the two were traitors and Asuma knew that, it didn't change the fact that Sarutobi's teammates had been there more for Asuma when Asuma was growing up than he had been. Sarutobi didn't doubt for a second that Asuma was not just as appalled by their behavior as he was, but it was another widening of the divide between the father and son. When Sarutobi looked back on his past rationalizations of his absences, he couldn't help but weep at how flimsy his reasons seemed now in his old age. Sarutobi got up out of his seat and left the Hokage tower. Slowly he walked through the streets of Konoha, the setting sun at his back creating a remarkable backdrop. With so few friends left alive, there was only one place that Sarutobi knew he could regain his spirit back. Soon enough Sarutobi reached the outskirts of Konoha and came upon the cottage where Naruto and Luna lived. Seeing that there was a light in the window, Sarutobi politely knocked at the door. The door quickly opened to reveal Luna in her rather attractive human form. Luna smiled at Sarutobi and said, "Hello Sarutobi. Naruto and I were just sitting down to dinner, you can join us if you want as we have plenty and you look famished." A small smile appeared on Sarutobi's face as he said, "A home-cooked dinner sounds wonderful right now." Once Sarutobi was inside of the modest home, he was almost immediately tackled into a hug by Naruto. Luna watched the two interact for a few minutes with a smile on her face. Over the years, Sarutobi had grown into a close friend of hers and Luna respected the old leader for all that he had given up in order to protect his village. But one of the things that she always loved to see was when Sarutobi and Naruto were alone and the two acted like they were just a grandfather and his grandson having a good time together. All the worry and pain that the two carried stoically all day just seemed to disappear. Dinner was a relatively quiet and planned affair. Although Luna could get acceptable deals from the merchants in town, she still had to really watch the budget and was thankful that Naruto had been given a license on his 10th birthday to be allowed to hunt in the forests outside the village. Currently they were having some rice and vegetables with bits of rabbit that Naruto had caught yesterday mixed in. Once everyone had finished eating dinner, the three of them sat around the table and enjoyed some small talk. Sarutobi was proud to find out that Naruto had learned the Shadow Clone Explosion Jutsu. However, Naruto was still upset that he wasn't good enough with the technique to use it in a spar or an actual battle. Sarutobi told Naruto that he was surprised that Naruto had become that skilled in the jutsus that he had given Naruto. Naruto had the decency to blush. Sarutobi was contemplating about leaving the happy little family alone for the rest of the night when Naruto pulled out his puppy eyes jutsu and roped Luna and Sarutobi into playing a strategy game. For the next 2 hours by the fire everyone sat around and played the game of Naruto's choice. Finally it was time for Naruto to go to bed. Naruto was initially hesitant to go to bed, but when Sarutobi mentioned that someone's team was looking at a C-ranked mission in the morning, Naruto rushed off to get some sleep. Once Naruto was upstairs, Luna said, "How are you handling that situation, Sarutobi?" Sarutobi just sighed and said, "I'm handling it one day at a time." Thank you for letting me join you too this evening. Spending time with Naruto always cheers me up. Luna had a faraway look in her eyes as she said, yes, Naruto does have that effect on people. His brain he got from his father, his heart he got from his mother. Sarutobi then nodded his head and then stroked his chin as he said, that he does, Luna. Sarutobi and Luna sat in silence for a minute before Sarutobi asked, Luna, do you remember my question the other day? You never told me the answer. Luna tweeted her paws nervously and said, what you were asking about is highly unusual. While there may not have been any laws against it in the Silver Millennium, and it did happen at times in the history of the Japanese, it wasn't something that happened a lot. At this Sarutobi smirked and said, but it did happen, didn't it, Luna? Her drooping head was all the proof that Sarutobi needed. Sarutobi then said, don't worry, Luna, everything will be fine. Never forget that I have Naruto's best interests at heart. While my plan may be slightly offensive to you, you have to admit that it does help Naruto with no one getting hurt. Luna was forced to agree to Sarutobi's point in that regard, but she didn't have to like the plan to know it was a good one. Sarutobi then said goodbye to the black cat and left to go home. Author's notes, so the plot thickens. What is Naruto's new C-class mission? Will the scouts find Naruto? What is this plan of Sarutobi's that has Luna so annoyed? Stick around and you'll soon find out. Please note that the poll is still going and I appreciate your input. Naruto and Mamoru are sitting backstage at anime studies in the men's locker rooms. Naruto, hey Mamoru. Mamoru, yes Naruto? Naruto, do you know the difference between us? Mamoru, what Naruto? Naruto's currently wearing a black suit and tie and then pulls out a pair of sunglasses and puts them on his face. Naruto, the difference between you and me is that I make this look good. Chapter 4. Team 10, which had picked up the nickname of Team Maelstrom, was standing in the Hokage's tower at the mission distribution office. Currently Irika was giving out missions and smiled when he saw Naruto and his team approach. With a cheerful voice Irika said, hey there Naruto, Ino, Kiba, here to pick up a new mission? The three genin in question just nodded their heads at their former teacher. Irika pulled out a pile of missions and said, well let's see, we have walking the Inazuka's dogs, there's some fences that need to be mended dash. At this point Naruto cut off Irika and said in a collected, but annoyed tone, Irika, we've done 16 D-ranked missions. We've earned the right for a C-ranked mission, so would you please be so kind as to get out the C-ranked mission folder? At this very moment Sarutobi walked through the door and said, very true Naruto, very true. Sarutobi turned to face Irika and said, would you please get the C-rank mission folder out for Team Maelstrom? Irika was no fool and knew that, although it was phrased like a question, the Hokage's question was an order. Irika put the D-ranked mission file away and reached for the other mission file. Quickly scanning over the missions available that were listed, Irika smiled and said, alright guys, there's a merchant in Konoha that is traveling to a town on the eastern border of Fire Country who is looking for some ninja protection. He doesn't expect much more than a few bandits as he's only carrying furs, wood, and a few other odds and ends, but wants protection to make sure that his goods arrive safely and on time. Do you accept the mission? Naruto looked at his two teammates to see what they had thought about the mission. Ever since their first mission that Anko had given them, Naruto had become the unofficial leader of the genin in Team 10. On seeing that Kiba and Ino wanted to take the mission, Naruto turned to Irika and said, on behalf of Team 10, I accept this mission. Irika only sent a quick glance towards Anko, only to see her with a smirk on her face showing her approval, before he handed the mission scroll over to Naruto. Naruto opened the scroll and quickly scanned the full briefing of the mission. Turning to face his teammates, Naruto said in a voice that reminded Sarutobi of Naruto's father, Ino, Kiba, this looks like a minimum of a 2-week mission. Go home and get your long-term mission packs, the ones that have the seal scrolls with most of your gear that we got a week ago. Go to your parents, tell them that you will be away on a mission for a while, and request at least one new technique scroll so that you can practice the technique during the quiet parts of the mission. You will meet me in 2 hours at the main eastern gate of Konoha where I will be with our client. Naruto at this point gave his friends a smile before he turned around and walked out the door to take care of a few things he needed to do before the mission started. Ino and Kiba looked at each other for a second before they both nodded their heads at the same time and turned to leave. Irika was staring at where the Genin of Team 10 had been in shock before he turned to Anko and said, "What are you teaching those kids?" They were acting like professional jonin. At this, Anko said, "They're very unique kids and actually I haven't had to teach them a whole lot. Mostly it's just been helping them see where their weaknesses are, and they just take care of the rest." Anko pulled out a dango stick and hit one of the dango before continuing to talk. As for their command structure, well, that's something that developed naturally. Naruto seems to have a, presence would describe it, about him that makes him want to listen to what he has to say. Combine this presence with the boy's very developed tactical mind and caring heart, and you have a leader that Ino and Kiba would gladly follow into hell. Sarutobi just nodded his head when he heard Anko describe it all to him. Minato had such a presence about him as well. It would make sense that Minato's son Naruto would have inherited that same presence as well. Also Usagi, may the gods rest her dear sweet soul, radiated a sense of respect and caring about her that seemed to have been inherited by Naruto as well. All in all, Naruto was shaping up to be what looked like a legendary figure. Sarutobi wouldn't be surprised if the boy had surpassed his father in greatness by Naruto's 18th birthday. When Team 10 met up at the specified gate of Konoha, they saw Naruto having a friendly chat with their client in front of an overloaded wagon. They learned that their client's name was Ryoga Yagnasaki. Ryoga was quite glad to meet with his guards and said, "Thank you for agreeing to accept my mission. I know that the kinds of goods I trade in don't fetch a large profit on the black market, but with the way some of the bandit groups are going lately, you never know." At this, Anko just smirked and said, "Don't worry about a thing. These kids can handle any bandits that might think you're a good target. If by some chance they can't handle the bandits, I'm here." Ryoga just smiled and said, "That's good to know. Now how about we get going? One of you can sit next to me on the wagon and another on the back of the wagon if they don't mind sitting on wood planks. I'll be going at a slow pace so as to not exhaust my oxen, so if what I know about you ninja is correct, the other two of you can walk next to the cart at a comfortable pace." With that said, Team 10 and their client left Konoha. What the hell is with these bandits? This is the third raid against us since we left Konoha 4 days ago. Kiba yelled before he and Akamaru performed a fong-over-fong attack on a nameless masked bandit. Kiba was understandably annoyed because ever since they were a day out from Konoha, they had been attacked by bandits every day. Kiba was the first to admit that he liked a good brawl, but this was getting to be too much for him. Suddenly Kiba heard Naruto call from above him, "Kiba, for bandits approaching from 630, take care of them." Kiba didn't bother to grunt a response, knowing that the one giving him the directions was only a shadow clone. When Naruto had learned that trick, Kiba didn't know but was extremely grateful. Ever since that first attack, Naruto had at least one shadow clone sitting on the roof of the wagon at all times to act as a lookout. Now, the clone was firing off information to the rest of the team as Naruto and Anko were handling the main body of the bandit 100 feet away from the wagon. Ino, who was standing next to Ryoga at the driver's bench of the wagon, was busy deflecting various projectiles that were aimed at the scared merchant. Muttering to herself, Ino said, "What is with these bandits? We're only carrying deer furs, wood, and a few gardening supplies, for crying out loud." Ino then called to the 3 Naruto clones that were protecting the oxen, "Hey! I need one of you guys to dispel yourself and tell Naruto that we need to capture one of these suckers alive. We need to know why we were being attacked like this." One of the Naruto clones nodded his head and promptly did as Ino had requested. Naruto, who was standing back to back with Anko, felt the clone's knowledge of Ino's request pop into his brain. Without turning to face Anko, Naruto called out, "Ino wants us to capture one of the bandits alive in order for us to question the bandit on why we're being attacked." Anko shot back, "Sounds like that girl's got a good plan. It's getting boring just hacking these fools without knowing why they're going after us." With that, Anko and Naruto got to work making mincemeat for the bandits. 10 minutes later, Team 10 were standing around their single-bound captive, the first out of 200 bandits on this mission that they had left alive. Ryoga was currently setting up a small fire and was cooking dinner for him and his guards. The middle-aged man said that, although he knew that the interrogation would be needed, he just couldn't stomach seeing it happen. Anko, not wanting her students to have to dirty their hands with interrogation just yet, was getting ready to find out the answers to her question. Anko woke up the bandit with a crack of a whip she always kept on hand, never knowing when she would want to use it next. The bandit looked up at the smirking Anko and started to quiver in fear. Using a tone that's guaranteed to scare the bandit even more, Anko, while grinning, said, "Okay, pond scum, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks. The class is Remedial Pain 101 and I'll be your teacher for the day. Here's how the lesion will go. I'll be asking you some questions. If you don't answer correctly, you'll be given a penalty exam. Just so that you know, the first penalty exam will be to see how well you deal with losing your dick." At that last comment, Ino blushed and the boys of Team 10 crossed their legs in sympathy pain. One thing about Anko that they had learned early on was that Anko didn't know the meaning of the word restrain. Anko, however, was smirking. Her little threat towards a certain part of the bandit's anatomy had made the fool pay extra attention to her questions and would assure her that he answered all of their questions. Anko then decided to start off the integration questions. "Alright then, why did you attack us? You bandits wouldn't normally go after a small convoy like us, especially considering the fact that it had an escort and was known to not have anything of great value." At this, the bandit swallowed a gulp and answered the grinning madwoman in front of him. "I don't know the specifics of it all, but earlier today a man came into our camp and paid our boss to capture this convoy for him." This news got Anko's attention. Apparently there was someone targeting the convoy, but why? Anko's eyes narrowed as she almost hissed out with her voice laced in killing intent, "Describe the man who paid your leader. If you don't tell me everything about this man, I won't just stop with the first penalty exam." The poor bandit was reduced to a blubbering mass as he said, "I didn't get a good look at his face, but I know that he was bald. He was wearing a cloak that seemed to be a patchwork of browns and greens. He came in and left on this very large lizard that he made appear from nowhere." Team 10 watched as their sensei's eyes widened in shock and what looked like fear for a second before she cleaved the bandit's head off. Anko then turned to face her teammates and with urgency in her voice shouted out at them, "Don't just stand there. Search every nook and cranny of the wagon and report anything, and I mean anything, no matter how small or insignificant, that you don't recognize as being produced in Konoha. I've got to go talk to our client." Team 10 were confused at their sensei's actions but still obeyed. Opening up the wagon's canvas covering, Ino and Naruto walked inside while Kiba was checking around the outside of the wagon for any hidden compartments. A minute or so later, Ino called out, "Hey! I've found something that meets Anko's description." Ino reached into a side compartment of the wagon and pulled out a potted plant with strange patterns on its leaves. Ino carefully carried out the plant and headed over to Anko with Naruto and Kiba following her. Anko saw Ino approach and her eyes were fixated on the plant her student was carrying. Turning to face their client, Anko said in a voice that could freeze a person's blood, "Where did you get that plant?" Ryoga, who was quite confused and nervous at seeing Anko like she was, said, "I was traveling through the land between the land of the waterfall and the land of rice when I spotted that plant growing. I'm an amateur botanist and was fascinated by the plant as I've never heard of a plant with leaves like it. I put it in that pot that your student found." On hearing this, Anko smacked her head and said, "Great, just great. That plant happens to be a Kwaneth plant, which is of great significance to the Narn clan." At this, Ino blinked her eyes and said, "Anko, who are the Narn? I've never heard of that clan when my father was talking about the powerful clans of the various hidden villages. Why does the thought of them seem to have you so nervous?" Naruto and Kiba both nodded their heads, wanting to know who the Narn were and what was making their teacher so nervous as well. Anko motioned for her students to sit down and she began to lecture them. "Okay kids, listen up. Despite what most of the villagers talk about around you kids, there are powerful clans of ninja who aren't affiliated with any village. The Narn are one of these clans that aren't aligned to any ninja village. The Narn are a little different than most unaffiliated clans in that they've built, well, I guess you could call it a monastery for themselves in the area that our client here ventured through. That plant he took is sacred to the Narn clan. It is in fact so sacred to the Narn that for an outsider to take the plant without the approval of one of the Kari, which is what the Narn call their council of elders, is to be met with the death of the offender." At this, everyone looked at Anko with worry in their eyes. Ryoga was shaking in fear as he said, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know that this would happen when I took that plant. It was just growing in the wild, I didn't know that something like this would happen. Ino was getting slightly scared at what Anko had told them and wanted to know something. Anko, is there any way we could just give back the Quaneth plant to whoever the Narn is that is attacking us? Anko shook her head and said, it's not that simple. You see, the Quaneth plant was taken and thus by the Narn beliefs it has been defiled. In order to get the Narn off our backs about the plant, one of us would have to fight and beat the pursuing Narn in fair one-on-one combat. If that person beat the Narn then, I don't know the exact circumstances behind it, the Narn would purify the plant, take it back with them, and declare that the victor would be an ally of the Narn clan. The problem is that we can only issue a challenge for combat once. If we violate one-on-one combat or if our champion fails to win, then we forfeit our lives. If we were to resist this forfeiture, then the Narn would declare a blood feud on all of our blood relatives. To make matters worse, the Narn have a bloodline limit that makes them able to summon all reptiles summoned fully under their command with extremely little chakra needed. Even Manda, the snake boss summon, would be forced to obey a Narn who summoned him no matter how much he would hate it. Also, if someone else was to summon a reptile, the summon would be under the Narn's control and not the summoner. Naruto could see the problem with the Narn being after them. Anko was a great fighter, but almost all of her high-level attacks required the use of her snake summons. Against someone with the Narn's bloodline, Anko would be almost on the same level as Ino and Kiba. But what were they to do? This Narn would follow and continue to attack them until the Quaneth plant had been reclaimed, and the only way to do that was to beat them in combat. The only solution appeared in Naruto's mind. With firm eyes Naruto said, I'll be the one. I'm the only one who has a chance of beating this Narn in combat. At this Kiba and Ino looked at Naruto as if he was mad. Anko looked into Naruto's eyes and quickly figured out Naruto's train of thought. Cursing loudly Anko said, damn it kid, you just had to be right about that. As much as I hate it, Naruto fighting our attacker is the best chance of victory we have. While Ino and Kiba were looking on in confusion, no one noticed a small garden snake slither away from camp. Narn was sitting in his own camp when one of his snake-summoned spies came up to him and whispered in his ear. After the summon had dispelled itself, Kar sat on a log deep in thought. So the ninja guarding the criminal hadn't known about the man's sacrilege. Apparently the young blonde boy with whiskered checks was willing to fight him in order to save the defiler. Commendable bravery, but bravery wouldn't save this foolish youth from a Kari like himself. Still, there was something about the description of the boy that gnawed in the back of Kar's mind. Kar was, however, willing to give the foolish youth his request. Besides, using those bandits had been distasteful to a warrior like Kar. Kar then summoned one of the older of the snake boss's children and rode on its head towards the other camp. As Kar approached the other camp, he was pleased to see the boy who had talked about challenging him already facing him with determination burning in his eyes. At the very least, the boy was a warrior even if he was young. Kar shouted out, I am Narn, member of the Kari, who spoke of challenging me for the Quaneth plant. The blonde boy in front of him spoke out, my name is Naruto Tuskino and I issued the challenge. The name the boy had spoken shocked Kar, who muttered in his mind Maelstrom of the Moon? But that is the name of the Kar stopped that line of thought. The boy in front of him couldn't have been the one, and now he would kill him for daring to bear that name. With fury in his voice Kar shouted out, prepare to die. Kar then rapidly performed a set of hand seals before shouting out, summon mimicry art of the frog oil fire. A large stream of oil came shooting out of Kar's mouth, which Kar promptly set on fire with some chakra from his thumb. Naruto dashed out of the way and retaliated with a shadow clone kunai jutsu. Kar summoned a metal staff from a seal on his wrist guards and used the staff to deflect the kunai. Once the storm of kunai was over, Kar looked from his perch on top of the snake to see that he was surrounded by a ring of Narutos. Kar felt a smile cross his lips as he looked at the sight. This was going to be a great fight. Kar then noticed all of the Naruto clones start rushing towards him and then whispered out in shock, don't tell me that he knows that attack? Kar then jumped off of the summon in order to not be caught in the explosion created by all of the clones. Kar landed on his knees and wiped away some blood from his lips. Turning to face Naruto, who was looking at him with determination in his eyes, Kar growled out, Very good, brat. You're no ordinary boy, I grant you that. However, it's time that the kitty gloves come off, and with that car started to power up. Anko shouted out to Naruto, "Watch out, kid, he's putting out the power of a Sannin." Naruto had felt car power up and didn't need Anko to tell him the obvious. This car guy, even though he looked like a walking reptile man, was good. That last attack that Naruto had pulled off had used up about half of his remaining reserves that he had recovered since the bandits attacked. From how things looked, it was obvious that Car had the upper hand, and both of them knew it. However, one common saying in the ninja world is, never expect things to be the way they look at first glance. Naruto smirked and shouted out, "You may think that you're winning, lizard breath, but I haven't brought out the power of my bloodline limit." On the sidelines, Kiba and Ino looked at each other, and Kiba asked, "Has Naruto's mind finally cracked?" Ino answered him in an unsure voice, "Who knows? I've never heard of the Tuskino family, so it's possible that Naruto does have a bloodline. But what kind of a bloodline is it that would allow Naruto to believe he could equal someone on the Sannin level?" As if in answer to Ino's question, Naruto raised his fist into the air and shouted out, "Moon Crystal Armor, energize!" Naruto was then covered in a pillar of white light. When the pillar of light receded, the Moonlight Knight was standing there with his arms folded across his chest and his cape billowing in the breeze. Naruto, or rather the Moonlight Knight, shouted out at Car, "Shall we now commence with round 2? Car just stood there looking at Naruto in shock. Anko heard the Narn warrior gasp out, "It can't be, why did the auguries not mention that you had been born?" At this, Naruto got confused and annoyed. What was this reptile man spouting out about his birth being mentioned? Naruto got fed up with Car not attacking and cried out, "Hey reptile man! Are we going to get back to the fight, or do you have a prior engagement?" Car was, however, lost in thought, and inside of him a struggle raged. How dare he insult me so? Why weren't we told about his birth happening? Have we been compromised by the ancient enemy? How long has it been preparing that we didn't know about? This is far more important than the Quaneth. Car closed his eyes as he reached a decision. Car then opened his eyes and called out to Naruto, "Consider the Quaneth purified, young storm. But beware, the tendrils of a great darkness are stretching out to consume the land. Grow strong, young storm, for you are the one that will be the light in the coming night of darkness." Car then body flickered away, leaving a confused Naruto behind. Naruto then turned around to look at his teammates to see if they understood what Car was talking about. It took only one glance at his teammates to see that they were as confused about the sudden turn of events as he was. Naruto and his teammates just stood there looking back and forth at each other for a few minutes. Suddenly Ino said, "Naruto, why are you dressed like that?" Naruto looked at the determined gleam in Ino's eye and hoped that he would manage to retain some secrets from her when the night was over. Sailor verse. Setsuna Mayo was smirking and almost dancing for joy. That last burst of lunary and royal energy had allowed her to pinpoint where the princess was at. Even though the energy was rapidly fading, Setsuna could now lock onto that dimension with just a thought. Not wanting to waste any time, Setsuna transported herself over to the Tuskino family household, where all the scouts, the remaining Tuskino family, and Artemis had conveniently gathered together. Ikuko Tuskino was currently sipping some tea, trying not to cry at the thought of her missing daughter. It had come as a shock to her and the rest of her family to learn that her sweet little Usagi had been fighting to protect the city from various monsters. Learning that her daughter was a reincarnated princess and that her closest friends had been her daughter's court was still a shock to the mild housewife. She could see that each and every one of her daughter's friends wanted to be the one missing instead of Usagi, and the thought that her daughter could develop such good friends made her smile. Ikuko looked up to see a flash of light appear in the center of the family room and Sailor Pluto appearing out of the light. Setsuna was smiling and said in a pleasant tone, "I've found where the princess is." At this, everyone who knew about Usagi and the real reason why she was missing came crawling out of the woodworks. After everyone was seated down, Setsuna said, "As you all know, during the death of Pharaoh 90, the princess was flung through a hole in space/time. I've just been able to detect bursts of royal lunarian energy coming from a single point in one dimension. That means that we can go and bring the princess back home." Everyone let out a cheer of happiness at the news. Setsuna calmed them all down and said, "However, there are a few bumps in the road to be taken care of before we can bring the princess back with us. I know the general area at that time/space location that the energy is coming from, but until we get to that dimension I can't pin it down to a location smaller than China. Also, the only way currently available to us to travel between dimensions will leave those who go to get the princess stranded there for at least a month while the method resets. To make it worse, I won't be able to tell the conditions of the world besides the fact that it's habitable until we make it to the other side." Ray then spoke up, "So you're saying that whoever goes there will be going in blind and without any backup for at least a month?" Setsuna just nodded her head and said, "That's exactly what I'm saying. However, I do have a way for those who go to communicate with those who stay behind to protect Earth. I will be going as I am the only one who knows how to perform the transportation. Who will be going with me to find the princess?" Chapter 5. Well, here we go then for another section of Mother Moon. Just so you know, the poll is closed and I have taken into consideration everyone's opinions but have made up my own mind as to who Naruto will be romantically paired with: Ino Yamanaka, Ami Mizuno, Makoto Kino, and Temari. For those of you who didn't get the particular girl you wanted matched up with Naruto, please don't complain as it was hard to make the cut for me. I now have two smaller polls going on: should Setsuna be paired with Kakashi, Kar, or someone else, and should Hotaru be paired with Shino, Gaara, or someone else? Also, even though those four I mentioned are the pairings with Naruto, should I have Naruto have a one-night deal with any of the other senshi to give them an heir? Just so you know, there will be no sex scenes in my story. I don't mind a fade to black setup and will probably use it, but no explicit sex will be portrayed in my works. This is just an idea that popped in my head and I would like some feedback on it. Enough of that and on with the story. Sailor verse. Everyone in the room thought about what Setsuna had just told them. They could go find Usagi, but it was a gamble. They would be gone for at least a month and had no real idea of how things were in the world that Usagi had gone to after the battle. Makoto was the first to speak up and said, "I'll go. I've got no relatives at home to worry about and I owe Usagi too much to just stand here when I could have helped." Inside her mind, Ami debated for a bit before coming to a conclusion and spoke up. "I'll go as well. I'll have to tell my mother, but it's worth it to go find Usagi." Ray then voiced her mind. "I'd like to go, but my father is having me go with him on an ambassadorial tour of Europe. There's no way I'm going to let him find out about the scouts." Minako glumly looked down at her lap and said, "My parents are taking a vacation in China and have decided that we're going as a family. They just wouldn't understand me disappearing for a month or more." Hakora looked at Michiru for a moment before nodding her head and saying, "I speak for both Michiru and I when I say that we're staying here. Someone needs to protect Earth and that has been the Outer's traditional duty." Hotaru, who had been as quiet as a church mouse, then spoke up. "I'll go with you to find Usagi." Hotaru had been having a difficult time at the loss of Chibi USA and her father. She had been staying with the Tsukinos and wanted to repay them for their kindness. Setsuna thought that it was interesting that half of both the inners and outers would be going to retrieve the princess. Setsuna's thoughts were interrupted when Ikoko coughed and said, "If it's all right, I would like to come along as well." Setsuna raised an eyebrow at this because she thought it was strange that the meek housewife would want to go off into the unknown. "You do realize the dangers, Mrs. Tsukino?" Setsuna said in a matter-of-fact tone. Ikoko just turned to look Setsuna in the eye and said in a firm voice that brooked no argument, "Usagi is my daughter, I'm going with you." Setsuna knew that the discussion was closed and said, "That's fine with me. I just wanted to make sure you understood what was going on." Setsuna then turned to face the people who were going and said, "Pack what you need. Make sure that you pack clothing that is durable and functional. You should also bring a book or two in order to keep from being bored. We will all meet back here at 8 a.m. I will then transport us all to the Pluto Royal Palace where I shall then transfer us to the dimension where the princess is." Everyone nodded their heads showing that they understood Setsuna's directions before leaving to take care of things. Naruto verse. Naruto was sitting in a field right outside his and Luna's cottage thinking about how Team 10's last mission had gone. Ino and Kiba had taken the news that his mother was a reincarnated princess and that it was from her that he derived his bloodline. Naruto was happy that he was able to get away with just revealing that much of himself to them. Don't get Naruto wrong, he cared for and respected each of his teammates a great deal. However, he wasn't sure if they could handle all of his secrets at once with their current level of maturity. When it was all said and done, Team 10 was closer after the talk than they had been before the mission started. After they had escorted Ryoga to his destination, Ryoga gave them a large bonus. When Ino had asked why he had done that, Ryoga answered, "I endangered you and put you in a situation where you shouldn't have been due to me taking that plant and you stuck with me. Your bravery and hard work deserve to be rewarded." Naruto didn't say anything, but his respect for the merchant grew. All too often there were people who would try and weasel out of paying Ninja all of the money that a job was priced at. Naruto's mind left the mission and focused on what had happened when they had gotten back to Konoha. Once Team 10 had given their mission report to the Hokage and was turning to leave, Sarutobi had asked Naruto to stay behind a minute. Sarutobi had then told Naruto, and Naruto focused in really hard at what Sarutobi had told him. "Naruto, I've managed to get all of the Namikaze properties and assets transferred over to the Tsukino clan. The Tsukino clan, as under the clan reorganization law in all elemental countries, is as of this moment the legal successor to the Namikaze clan, holding all rights, privileges, and responsibilities of the previous clan. You Naruto are now the legal head of the Tsukino clan. Even if due to weird circumstances an elder relative of your late mother were to appear, you would be the clan head and to the hypothetical person." It was a lot of responsibility that came with being a clan head, even more so for a noble clan head like Naruto now was due to a law that was passed stating that the family of a Hokage automatically became a noble clan. He would be expected to manage clan finances and attend council meetings. Naruto would also be expected to show up at important functions. Luckily for Naruto, he could use the common practice of a proxy stand-in and have Luna go to the meetings for him, and she could help him with the finances. The thing that made Naruto uncomfortable was his potential marriage status. As a small clan with less than 50 members, it was socially expected that Naruto would take a few concubines in addition to a wife in order to make sure that the clan didn't die out. Also, with his bloodline, which he had decided would be officially known as Tsukusenshi or Moon Warrior, it would be expected even more for him to have several children with several different women. The major crux of the problem with having multiple wives, and Naruto intended to have the girls as his brides instead of just leaving them with the second-class rank of concubine, was the women in question. Naruto wanted a woman that he married to have a strong will, to genuinely like him, able to think for herself, and be willing and able to defend herself should she be attacked. However, Naruto figured that the kind of woman he liked would never want to share him even if pressure was put on by the council. Naruto didn't have any illusions that he would stay hated by the council all of his life. Naruto also figured that he would never be loved by the council as well. However, once the council found out about his bloodline and the fact that it had allowed him to destroy the Kyuubi, Naruto figured that they would want to see it continue and expand. At that point, his being the son of the Yondaime would just be extra icing on the cake for the greedy council members. Having it known throughout the elemental countries that Konoha possessed such a strong bloodline like the Moon Warrior bloodline would increase the number of clients that Konoha received. Knowing these facts, Naruto focused his resolve on the kinds of women he would marry. Naruto had seen the kinds of girls that chased after Sasuke and realized that he would probably have girls like that after him as well once the situation was known to the public at large. Those fangirls were not the kinds of women that Naruto wanted to have and raise his children with. If he couldn't find a decent wife or two in Konoha, Naruto was determined to look elsewhere in another village. Sailor Verse. Setsuna and her fellow dimensional travelers appeared in the middle of the Pluto Royal Palace's greeting hall. The hall was different than most of the architecture of the Silver Millennium due to the fact that the hall and the palace's style was similar to the Gothic style, instead of the Greco-Roman style that most of the Silver Millennium used. Setsuna motioned for her fellow travelers to follow her with their suitcases and started talking as they walked. "I'm sure you're all surprised at the architecture of the palace. It was constructed under my ancestor King Rhadamanthus, who said that he wanted the palace to be a unique building fitting for the unique status that the Pluto royal family has as protectors of the Time Gates. To be honest, the palace and its unique architecture was the biggest source of trade for Pluto due to tourists." Setsuna led the group outside the main palace building and into the open palace complex. All of her guests were awed to see that they were in the open air and could hardly believe that they were actually on Pluto. Setsuna gave her guests a minute to just take in the view before saying with a raised eyebrow, "I believe that we have an appointment to keep." Setsuna led the group into the building that contained the doorway to the time gates. She then led them to the chamber of the time gates. After making sure that the door was locked and everyone had what they needed, Setsuna placed her time staff into a grove in the center of the floor and started chanting. Omicron lambda rho delta omicron OH to omega nu pi upsilon lambda nu. Mu alpha kappa alpha theta omicron delta eta gamma epsilon kappa alpha theta delta iota alpha sigma chi zeta omicron upsilon mu epsilon alpha upsilon to omicron upsilon epsilon pi beta omicron upsilon lambda omicron upsilon delta rho mu omicron upsilon mu epsilon to alpha xi alpha upsilon to omicron upsilon tau alpha pi epsilon iota nu omicron. Kappa sigma mu omicron pi omicron sigma to epsilon kappa mu alpha sigma to epsilon pi nu omega tau rho alpha iota epsilon nu omicron kappa sigma mu gamma iota alpha to nu pi epsilon pi iota theta upsilon mu mu alpha pi mu epsilon delta epsilon chi to epsilon tau epsilon alpha upsilon tau nu tau eta nu tau alpha pi epsilon iota nu pi rho sigma phi rho tau eta delta nu alpha mu eta tau sigma iota sigma to epsilon sigma epsilon delta nu alpha mu eta nu epsilon sigma to epsilon 0 kappa alpha iota nu alpha epsilon mu pi delta sigma epsilon to tau alpha xi delta iota mu alpha chi rho eta gamma sigma tau eta nu epsilon upsilon lambda gamma kappa alpha iota epsilon pi iota tau rho to epsilon sigma epsilon nu alpha gamma iota alpha nu alpha pi epsilon rho sigma epsilon mu epsilon tau alpha xi. O Lord of Gates, guide us as we cross these treacherous roads in between this humble world we stand on now and that world for which we desire to go. Accept this humble offering of power so that you might not be angry and impede our journey. Grant us your blessing and allow us to pass between. The floor of the chamber became covered in glowing green glyphs. Then the door of the time gates glowed with a strange dark green energy. Suddenly a bright flash of light blinded all within the room, causing them to lose consciousness. Naruto verse. Luna was currently taking a good look around the cottage that had been her and Naruto's home for so long. Soon, at the latest by the end of the Chunin exams, she and Naruto will have relocated to the former Namikaze, now Tsukino, clan house. Now don't get Luna wrong, she had nothing against the clan house. However, this small cottage had been where Naruto's first steps had been, where she had heard his first words of Untai Una, and so many more precious memories were held. She had to fight back a tear when she learned that Sarutobi had graciously handed the deed to the cottage over Tsukino clan. Still, however much Luna loved the old cottage, she knew that necessity required Naruto to soon move into the larger clan house. As a noble clan, it would be an insult to the village for the Tsukino clan to be resided in a cottage instead of an ancestral estate. Also, the cottage would be big enough to hold her, Naruto, and Naruto's future wives. Wives, the word left a sour taste in Luna's mouth. Being born and raised in an egalitarian/mild matriarchal society, Luna saw the idea of multiple women sharing the same man to be, well, wrong. Sure, situations like this did occasionally arise during the Silver Millennium. What do you expect with a population of 600 billion? However, those were rare cases and people tried to keep such incidences hushed up. While Luna didn't like the idea of polygamy, especially for her precious Naruto, she had grudgingly given the plan her full support. As much as it pained Luna to admit it, this was not the Silver Millennium where people measured their lifespans in centuries. The old way of having 1 or 2 children for the noble families just wasn't smart in the world now. The lunar royal family had come too close to extinction for Luna's comfort, and the multiple wives would definitely ensure the survival of Naruto's family. Besides, she was proud that Naruto was at least thinking about finding good, healthy, strong girls to marry and wasn't using this as an excuse to fool around like a good deal of his classmates would have. Luna was brought out of her thoughts by a flash of light to her right. Turning around, Luna saw to her shock Sailor Pluto standing in her kitchen. Overcoming her shock, Luna cried out, "Sailor Pluto! When did you get here?" Setsuna raised an eyebrow and said, "Why are you so shocked, Luna? Surely you figured that it would only take a month or 2 for us to find you and the princess even though you were flung into a different dimension?" Before Luna could respond, Naruto came charging into the house with a kunai drawn. Naruto positioned himself in between Luna and Setsuna with a threatening growl on his face. In a rather annoyed voice, Naruto said, "Who are you and what are you doing in my and my Aunt Luna's house? Don't you dare claim that Auntie Luna invited you in, because there's only one door in the house and I know you didn't come through the door." Setsuna was shocked to see a boy about the scout's age jump in front of her and threaten her. All of this, because the boy thought that she was threatening Luna. But why did the boy refer to Luna as Aunt Luna? Also, why was there something in the boy's eyes that seemed so familiar to Setsuna? Setsuna was determined to find out the answer to this and decided to start asking questions. "What is your name, boy? I mean no threat to your aunt. If I truly meant harm to her, you wouldn't be around anymore." Naruto's eyes narrowed as he said, "Don't take me so lightly, intruder. I may only be a genin, but you'll find that you will regret messing with me or anyone I hold precious. I'm Naruto Tsukino, and anyone who threatens my family will wish they were never born." Setsuna's face paled with shock when she heard Naruto stated his name. It couldn't be, Setsuna's mind claimed, even though her heart was telling her it was true. Setsuna tried to dispel the thoughts that were bubbling in the back of her brain by glancing at Naruto's face. Looking into Naruto's eyes, Setsuna could see Usagi looking back at her through them. Setsuna's mind was overloaded with the implications of what she had heard and seen. This caused her to do the only thing she could: she fainted onto the floor. Setsuna slowly awoke to find that she was lying on a soft bed with a patchwork quilt covering her. Setsuna turned her head to find herself looking into the eyes of a worried Luna in cat form. Putting her hand on her head, Setsuna groggily said, "Luna, what in the goddess's name is going on?" Luna closed her eyes for a moment before saying, "Why don't you follow me downstairs, Sailor Pluto? Things aren't as you seem to think they are." Luna then got off the bed and led Setsuna downstairs. When the two ladies came downstairs, Luna led Setsuna over to the dinner table where Sarutobi was calmly smoking his pipe. Luna sat down on the table and, with a paw motioning to Sarutobi, introduced her two guests. "Sailor Pluto, this is Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage and leader of this village. Sarutobi, this is Setsuna, Sailor Pluto, and the protector of the time gates." Setsuna gave Sarutobi a curt nod, which Sarutobi responded to, before she sat down at the table. Luna turned to face Setsuna and said, "Don't worry about having to hide anything from the Hokage. He is one of the most trustworthy persons in the village and was one of Usagi's confidants." Setsuna's face showed her confusion and fear at Luna's use of the past tense. However, before Setsuna could voice a question, Luna held up a paw and said, "Before you say anything, I think you need to know the situation here. You say that you were looking for me and the princess for a month, correct?" Setsuna nodded her head, not liking what her gut was telling her. Luna took a deep breath before she started to tell her tale to Setsuna. "Sailor Pluto, Usagi and I arrived here in this world about 18 years ago. We were found by a team of ninja and taken here to the village of Konoha. A while after that, Usagi fell in love with Minato Namikaze, the leader of the team that found us. They were married about 16 years ago in an absolutely breathtaking, beautiful ceremony. Soon after the wedding, Minato had risen to become the Yandaime Hokage. However, 14 years ago, this village was attacked by the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Kyuubi was a demon whose power was only marginally weaker than Metallica when that dark entity destroyed the Silver Millennium. Many people died during that foul creature's assault on this village. The princess was one of the casualties of the attack. Her husband heroically stopped the Kyuubi by offering his soul crystal to be devoured by the Shinigami for the power to stop the demon. Naruto is Usagi's and Minato's only child, born on the night of the Kyuubi's attack. Usagi died only minutes after naming Naruto once he was born. However, Naruto's real tragedy involves the defeat of the Kyuubi. You see, Minato couldn't destroy the Kyuubi even with the help of the Shinigami like Usagi could have if she was alive. Minato was forced to seal the Kyuubi away, and the only thing strong enough to keep the demon trapped was a newborn child. That's right, Sailor Pluto, Minato sealed the Kyuubi away within his only son Naruto. Sarutobi saw that the tale had become too painful for Luna to continue to tell, and so he jumped in to inform the shocked Setsuna of what she needed to know. It was Minato's dying wish that the village see Naruto as a hero for being the living prison that would keep us safe from the wrath of the Kyuubi. Sadly, most of the villagers have refused to see Naruto for what he is and have blamed him for the destruction caused by the Kyuubi. I truly hope that they repent of their folly when they learn that Naruto has, thanks to the power he has inherited from his mother, destroyed the demon sealed within him. Setsuna sat there in her chair frozen in shock. Once again she had failed the royal family. First she hadn't been there to help defend the lunar palace from the attack by Metallica, and now she hadn't been there to help her princess. Why couldn't she, when it really matters, not be there for her friends? Queen Serenity had been her closest friend and the princess had been like a niece to her. She should have been there to help both her queen and her princess, and instead she was the time gate scratching her head trying to figure out what was wrong. In an uncharacteristic display of emotion, Setsuna let a tear slip down her cheek as she slammed her fists on the table and said, "Damn it! I should have been there for her. What kind of a guard am I if I can't even protect the person I swore I would protect?" Luna hopped off the table and transformed into her human form. The now human Luna wrapped her arms around the crying Setsuna and said, "Don't worry, Sailor Pluto. You tried your best to reach the princess. You know that Usagi wouldn't want you to be crying over her. Even Naruto, once he found out who you are, is worried about you. Don't let the past eat at you, Sailor Pluto. I've seen it happen to people around the village, and trust me, you don't want to go down that road. If you want to make it up to the princess, then help me take care of Naruto and help him achieve his dreams." It took her a few minutes, but Setsuna was able to get her emotions under check. Setsuna then said, "I didn't come alone. Ami, Makoto, Hataru, and Naruto's grandmother came with me to this dimension. The spell that I used to allow us to come here will not allow us to go back until at least a month has passed. Hokage, may we stay in your village?" Sarutobi just smiled his grandfatherly smile and said, "Of course you and your party may stay in Konoha. Friends of Usagi are always welcome guests as long as I rule Konoha. Although, I think that you will have to move into the Tsukino clan house a bit sooner than Luna." This little bit of humor brought a small smile to Setsuna's lips. Perhaps, the Senshi of Time thought, things would be alright. It was early morning and Makoto was currently in the kitchen of the Tsukino clan house making breakfast for all of the people there. As she made breakfast, Makoto thought about the previous few days. It had taken a few days for Naruto, Luna, and their interdimensional guests to get themselves fully straightened out in the Tsukino clan household. It had also been a major shock for the scouts in Ikuko to find out that Usagi was dead. However, their shock and pain did not stop them from taking a liking to Naruto. The story that was being told around town was that the scouts in Ikuko were from across the sea and had arrived here looking for Usagi. Once it was discovered that Usagi was Naruto's mother, the drugstores were making a killing selling headache and indigestion meds to the villagers. However, most of the younger kids hadn't figured out why the older people in the village were acting so strange about who Naruto's mother was. Makoto thought more about this strange world that she was currently in. The things that these ninja were capable of just amazed the Senshi of Wood. In fact, she had, and rather timidly for her, asked Naruto if he wouldn't mind teaching her some of the ninja's abilities. Naruto had told her to wait for an answer as he had to check something. A few hours later, Naruto told her at supper that, because the scouts were sworn to serve and protect his house first and foremost, they were considered by Fire Country law to be his servants. This meant that it was perfectly okay for any of the scouts to learn about chakra and how to use it, as they, via his oath of service to Konoha, were members of the village. After that, Naruto had shown her to the Tsukino clan library and directed her to some beginner books on chakra. The pride that Naruto had spoken of when he talked about being a ninja and, to a slightly lesser extent, protecting Konoha had caused Makoto to realize something. Naruto was determined to prove himself here in the elemental countries. The boy's heart was in Fire Country and Konoha. Naruto would not want to return to Earth in a month when they were able to use the spell again. Naruto may eventually want to visit Earth, but he would never want to live there. This fact caused Makoto to develop an uncomfortable lump in her throat. She had sworn a while ago that she would never abandon Usagi or her children. That she would serve and protect the royal Moon family with all her might. However, Makoto didn't know if she had the strength to spend the rest of her life here in Konoha. True, she had no real ties holding her to Earth except for the other scouts after her parents had died. Still, Earth was familiar to Makoto and she was just used to how things went on over there. Makoto shook her head. She still had plenty of time before she would have to worry about something like that. Makoto put the breakfast dishes on a tray and carried them into the dinner room where everyone was sitting and waiting for her patiently. After placing the tray on the center of the table, Makoto sat down to Naruto's right. Naruto was sitting at the head of the table. Makoto and Ami were each sitting next to him, followed by Hotaru and Setsuna. At the foot of the table sat Ikuko with Luna in her cat form on the table next to the Tsukino matriarch. Although it put a cramp in his early morning training, Naruto had insisted that, unless outside events dictated otherwise, everyone would eat breakfast and dinner together as a family. When Ami had asked Naruto why he insisted so strongly, he had said, "I've seen other clans become fragmented. I want to ensure that the Tsukino family in the future doesn't fall prey to such idiocy. Having a clan rule that all members of the clan eat their meals together will hopefully help my future descendants remain united." Breakfast was rather quiet as everyone was busy eating. Ami mentioned that she was scanning the text of the Tsukino clan library into the Mercury computer so that they would have a backup in case something happened to the written records. Naruto politely thanked Ami for her initiative, which caused her to start sporting a blush. Naruto finished his meal and said, "Excellent meal, Makoto, I would like to have seconds. However, I need to be going to meet up with my genin team. See you later, everyone." Naruto then got up and, after giving Luna and Ikuko a small kiss, left the room. The girl quietly continued eating their breakfast for a few minutes until Luna spoke up. "You know, Scouts," at this everyone at the table turned to face Luna, "each of you would make an excellent bride for Naruto." At this all of the Scouts did a spit take and Ikuko scowled. Ikuko then turned to face Luna and said, "How can you even suggest such a thing, Luna? After all, Naruto is Usagi's only son. If anything, these girls would be like Naruto's aunts and not suitors. Besides, they're only 15 years old." Luna put up her paws in a gesture of surrender before she said, "They're around Naruto's age and girls that he respects. Due to the laws of the elemental countries, Naruto will, whether we like it or not, have to have several lovers in order to ensure that his bloodline doesn't die out. Also, Ikuko, while I agree that the Scouts except for Setsuna are rather young, they are at the age that a lot of girls start to marry in these lands. I think of Naruto like he's a son to me and I want him to, at the very least, marry girls that he can respect and that can hold their own in this world." The Scouts, you have to admit, fit that bill to a T. I wasn't trying to force them in any way to marry Naruto, just try to let them know of the possibility. Each of the Scouts started to blush when they heard what Luna had to say. Makoto was screaming within her mind, "Great Luna, you just had to bring that up. I mean, yes, Naruto is handsome and a great guy. But how can you just suggest that we become part of a harem with him like it was getting a new dress?" Looking around the table at an annoyed Ikuko and embarrassed Scouts, Luna hoped that Naruto was having a good time with his team. Chapter 6. Disclaimer: I only own part of the plot that was not created by the owners of Naruto or Sailor Moon. Welcome to another exciting chapter of Mother Moon. Just so you know, currently the polls are 2 for Gaara/Hotaru, 0 for Shino/Hotaru, 1 for Kar/Setsuna and 1 for Kakashi/Setsuna. Please keep the votes coming. Naruto was calmly walking down the streets of Konoha on the long way to Team 10's meeting point. Anko had told them to come an hour later than normal today because she would be in a meeting for various jonin. As Naruto came to an intersection in the road, he turned his head to see a girl that caught his attention. She had emerald eyes and yellow hair that was done up in 4 pigtails. The girl was currently walking alone and had a big fan on her back. When Naruto saw the girl's forehead protector lying around her neck, he knew that she was a Suna ninja. Naruto, who had developed a great ability to read faces, saw that the girl seemed to be lost or at least looking for something. Deciding to follow his gut feeling, Naruto calmly approached the girl and said in a polite tone, "Hello there, would you mind telling me your name and what it is you are looking for? I might be able to help you. I know what it is you need help finding." Temari blinked her eyes as she saw and realized that a Konoha ninja was trying to help her. Part of her was flattered that someone wanted to help her without knowing who she was, another part of her was annoyed that he thought she needed his help. Seeing that Naruto was looking at her face and not her assets, the flattered part of Temari's mind won. Temari gave a slight smile and said, "Temari of the desert, I'm looking for one of my younger brothers." Naruto gave a slight nod towards Temari and said, "Naruto Tsukino. I'll help you try and find your brother, but in an hour I'll have to leave to meet up with my teammates. Just out of curiosity, is your other brother, the one we're not looking for, back in Suna, and that's why you're not worried about him?" Temari felt a strange feeling for a second when she heard Naruto's question and then forgot about the feeling. For some reason unknown to Temari, she found herself opening up to Naruto and said, "I'm looking for the older of my two brothers, Kankuro. Gaara, the youngest of the three of us, shouldn't cause any trouble, at least not among the civilians for right now. Kankuro, I expect, will try to cause trouble, even though we're not supposed to, and Gaara will be mad if he does cause trouble." Naruto just nodded his head as he listened to Temari describe Kankuro and what he was dressed in. However, a part of Naruto's mind was working at super speed to analyze Temari, what she had told him, and importantly how she had acted when she spoke. Warning bells were going off for Naruto due to how Temari had acted. Why should she be so afraid of her younger brother? It was obvious from the way she spoke about Kankuro that she didn't consider him much of a threat. So what was Gaara, the youngest sibling, like to scare the very self-assured Temari? Breaking off his thoughts for later, Naruto took another sweep of the area around him and spotted his target. Turning to face Temari, Naruto said, "If I'm not mistaken, that's your brother over there drooling at the cover of this month's Play Ninja issue in the window." Temari looked over to where Naruto was pointing and narrowed her eyes. Tick over her eye, Temari stormed over to where her brother was making a fool of himself and twisted one of his ears while putting his neck into a chokehold. Temari hissed into Kankuro's ear, "And just what do you think you're doing, brother dear?" Naruto just shook his head as he watched the scene going on in front of him. An annoyed Temari and embarrassed Kankuro made their way back to where Naruto stood. Knowing that he still had some time before he would have to worry about meeting his teammates, Naruto inquired, "Do you need any more help, or are you two to find on your own for now?" Before either of the Sand siblings could answer that question, Naruto stepped in front of Kankuro to stop a running Konohamaru from running into the annoyed ninja. The present Sand siblings watched on in amusement as Naruto started to talk with the little boy. "Konohamaru, why were you running like that? Do you realize that you almost ran into the ninja to my right, who probably would reach harshly to you?" Konohamaru started to look down at his feet as he said, "But boss, there was this very ugly banshee with pink hair that attacked me." Naruto felt a headache start to come as he went through the people he knew that matched Konohamaru's description and then asked, "Konohamaru, what did you say before this banshee started to attack you?" Konohamaru started to smile with a big grin and said, "I was just telling my friends that I overheard a few jonin say that Sasuke must be gay." Naruto smacked his head and let out a groan. Handing over his eyes, Naruto stated, "Konohamaru, you're an idiot. You don't go repeating things like that, especially where the dreaded and pathetic lifeform known as rabid fangirls can overhear you. And to make matters worse, it was the biggest Uchiha fangirl that overheard you. Sakura may only be plain in looks and slightly below average in her practical ninja skills, but insulting Sasuke will turn her into an entity that even Anko would prefer to avoid." Naruto then turned his head towards a particular branch on a nearby tree. In a firm but not threatening voice, Naruto called out, "Why don't you join us out here instead of being in that tree?" Temari and Kankuro started to get nervous when they saw Gaara's body flicker onto the nearby fence. Gaara turned to look at Naruto and said, "What is your name?" Naruto just smiled and said, "Naruto Tsukino, and you are?" Gaara curtly said, "Gaara of the desert, I look forward to fighting you, Naruto Tsukino." With that, Gaara started to walk away and was followed by his nervous siblings. Ino and Kiba were sitting in a meadow near Training Area 44 waiting for their two other teammates. Inside her mind, Ino started to complain to herself. "Where is Naruto? Ever since that mission where we encountered that car guy, the world has gone on its head." The young mine mistress wasn't really mad at Naruto, rather she was mad that her entire worldview had been broken, the pieces stirred up, and then placed back together in a jigsaw puzzle. After a few minutes, Ino stopped ranting inside her mind and started looking at the situation from the beginning. She did this so that she could calm down and solve her problem. It just wouldn't do for a rising ninja such as herself to lose her head. In her mind, Ino started to talk to herself. "Alright Ino, let's look at the facts and see where they lead. Naruto's mother was apparently a reincarnated princess from a powerful kingdom in another dimension. Still hard to believe that last fact about Naruto. No, you've got to focus. Now the source of Naruto's bloodline, and I guess you can actually call it that, is his fast healing and his ability to draw energy from the moon. He told Kiba and me that he has another form which he claimed was 10 times stronger than his Senshi form. Less than a week after we get back from Konoha, things really start to go crazy. First, Naruto has friends and relatives from his mother's side come to visit him. Ino knew that Naruto's visitors had come to Konoha via a spell trying to find his mother, even though the rest of the village had been told they were from over the ocean. Once the general villagers had heard that Naruto's mother was born Usagi Tuskino, they all started acting really strange. I mean, they always act around Naruto, but they used to get scowls and wanted nothing to do with him. Now, a lot of them looked like they just found out they threw away the winning lottery ticket. I wish I could solve that problem. For the next few minutes, Ino's mind flashed through scenes that she had witnessed of Naruto in town lately with his out-of-town guests. In particular, Ino's mind focused on the blue-haired and the brown-haired girls that could usually be seen accompanying Naruto. Ino thought about these particular scenes and how the two girls interacted with Naruto. The blue-haired Ami seemed to be shy, not Hinata Hyuga shy, but shy nevertheless. The other girl, Makoto, seemed full of life and was willing to speak her mind no matter what. Both of them Ino knew were helping Naruto, Ami in research, and Makoto through little odds and ends that Ino didn't know all of. Ino felt a surge of emotion rising from within her. Suddenly a realization hit Ino with the force of Tsunade's renowned right hook. Inside her mind, Ino whispered, "It can't be, I'm jealous of them. Why is it that I am jealous of Ami and Makoto when they want to spend time with Naruto? After all, I like Sasuke, right?" Ino brought up images of Sasuke within her mind, but the feelings that she used to feel at these thoughts didn't happen. Why was this so? Was it that she truly didn't like the Uchiha survivor anymore, or was it that she simply hadn't seen him in a while? Ino was shaken out of her mental musings when she heard Kiba get up and yell, "About time you got here, Moonfish." Ino turned her head to see Naruto walking towards them. Naruto's dark orange jacket was open so Ino could see his chest muscles covered by a black t-shirt. Also, Naruto's hands were in his pockets while his face was shining with his customary half-grin. Ino almost let out a moan as she looked at her friend. Here she was in the middle of a crisis over who she liked, and Naruto had come in here looking like that. Naruto was oblivious to the problems he was causing Ino. He just sat down under a tree and started a chakra control exercise. 10 minutes after Naruto had joined his teammates, all members of Team 10 got up sensing that Anko was nearing their location. Anko walked into the meadow with her usual grin on her face before she started talking. "Okay, Runts, I'm glad that you're all here on time. I have decided to allow you guys to have a shot at the Chunin exams." With that, Anko pulled out 3 forms from her trench coat pocket. All 3 genin accepted the permission forms from Anko without any questions asked. Anko then said, "You will need those forms in order to get into the Chunin exams. If you decide to go, bring those filled out forms to room 301 at the Ninja Academy by 9 o'clock. Understand me, you 3 may not be able to make it to Chunin. However, I want you to understand the test and to see what it means to be a Chunin. Also, if your runs continue to grow like you have been, I wouldn't be surprised if you pass this or your next exam." Anko then left her 3 students to think over their options carefully. Ami Mizuno, arguably one of the smartest people to have ever lived, was currently in the Tsukino family library busy at work scanning the contents of the library into the Mercury computer. While the magical computer was hard at work storing the new information into its hard drive, Ami was herself reading with half attention a book on sealing techniques. The subject was just fascinating to Ami, who was drawn to its logical and methodical workings. Unlike Nin and Genjutsu, Hyunjitsu required accuracy and a great understanding of the power being shaped in order to produce its effects. However, even though Hyunjitsu was far more complicated and harder to perform, it had great benefits that would make any seal master a person to be feared. One thing about Hyunjutsu that grabbed Ami was their long-lasting effects. The Hyga's Juken would have its chakra-blocking effects dissipate after a few hours. On the other hand, a seal for blocking a person's chakra would last as long as it was designed for or until it was destroyed by someone who knew how to combat it. Also, seals could be fashioned to do a multitude of tasks. Over the past couple of days, Ami had read about how there were seals for security, seals for preservation, and seals to collect energy. However, those high-level seals were mostly unknown to the population, who thought of seals as in explosive notes and a sealing scroll. While Funjitsu was a neglected ninja art for most people, Ami was dedicating her free energy to becoming a seal mistress. Already in her mind were bubbling various ideas for seals she could create. Some of the seals Ami was half dreaming up were vast creations that would be better called a seal array than seals. In her mind's eye, Ami saw a hybridization of silver millennium magic and ninja seals. They would have the power to do things that would make even a seal master go starry-eyed. Ami was shaken out of her fantasy when she heard the door to the library open up. Ami shook her head and turned to look at who was entering the library. A blush started to form on Ami's face when she saw that it was Naruto who had entered the library. Naruto had decided to leave his usual orange jacket off, so Ami was greeted by a view of Naruto's rather well-developed muscles. The rather shy genius just politely greeted Naruto before she ducked her head back into her book. After giving Ami a cheerful greeting, Naruto picked up a book and started to read it in a seat across from Ami. Without any indication to the outside world, Ami was having a fierce debate within her soul. Oh my, Naruto sure is handsome. No. Naruto is Usagi's son, which makes him off limits. Why does that make him off limits? He is our age after all. B, because we went to school with Usagi, I was best friends with Usagi, I should be more like an aunt to Naruto. But Usagi was dropped off in this dimension over 18 years ago. That would make her closer to your or her own mother in age. Besides, if Usagi knew of the time discrepancy, she would wholeheartedly support us betting Naruto. Ami almost passed out and wondered where that last thought came from. Usagi was a kind and generous girl, and from what Ami had heard from Luna and Naruto's teacher Anko, Usagi had not changed at all in that regard while she was alive. It wouldn't be too far of a stretch to see Usagi agreeing or even encouraging Naruto to get together with her or Makoto. Within her mind, Ami continued to debate the situation with the part of her that was acting like the devil's advocate. Even if Usagi would have accepted me dating Naruto, there is no way she would accept me BB bed. At the moment, the other part of her cut her off and said, why wouldn't Usagi accept us roping Naruto into a first-class flight to Cloud 9? After all, Naruto will need help in restoring his clan. Who better than some dear old friends who knew his mother, are compassionate, understanding, helpful, and will spend the next 1,000 years with him? At that point, Ami found herself losing her opposition to the idea, and she was sure that she didn't want that to happen. Ami got up and said, excuse me Naruto, I'm just going to take care of something. Once gave Ami his foxy smile, Ami determined that she needed a long cold soak in the tub. At 8 a.m. sharp, the three genins of Team Maelstrom met at the pre-appointed crossroad. Each of them was in their usual ninja attire, but they were loaded with their full mission supply scrolls. They all expected to be able to pass the exam and wanted to be prepared for whatever may come their way. Naruto took point as he led his two teammates over to the academy. Less than 10 minutes later, Team Maelstrom calmly walked into the academy. After walking up a flight of stairs, they were surprised to see people clamoring around room 301. Naruto, Ino, and Kiba looked at each other and said simultaneously Genjutsu. After that, the three continued walking up the stairs until they reached the real room 301. Well, good to see that you three runts didn't embarrass me by falling for that cleaver pretest. The three genin turned as one to face their smirking teacher Anko. On hearing the sarcasm dipping from Anko's mouth, Ino said, who was the idiot who put up that pathetic genjutsu? It was so weak that only a complete moron could be caught in it. They should have at least made it so that you would think you've gone up another flight of stairs first. Anko pulled out a dango stick and said between bites, the genjutsu test was set up by a few of the councilmen. However, they lowered the level of the genjutsu after a councilman's son was kicked out of the exam due to being caught by the genjutsu. The Hokage still hasn't been able to look over all the regulations to see where the Fallen has fouled us up, thus wasn't able to get to changing the ruling for this particular test. Team Maelstrom nodded somberly at their teacher's words. The Fallen was a very upsetting subject for the team. They didn't know whether to be proud they had unmasked those traitors or worried that the Fallen had purportedly vowed vengeance against them and their families. Naruto ended the uncomfortable silence by saying, "Although it is great to see you, Anko, why are you here now?" Anko, who was working on yet another dango stick, said if the three of you hadn't shown up together, I would have kicked the other two's butts for trying to go into the exam without a full team. But since all three of you are here, I just want to say give them hell. With that, Anko's body flickered away and Naruto, Kiba, and Ino walked into the room. Team Maelstrom watched as various teams from Konoha and other hidden villages trickled into the waiting room. Soon the room was full of Chunin hopefuls, most of whom were just begging for a fight. Kiba looked around the room and then grabbed Naruto's jacket before saying, "Hey look Naruto, the drama queen is in the house." Naruto looked and saw his friend pointing to Team 7, to be more specific, at Sasuke. Naruto looked over at Ino and, upon seeing a tic start to develop on her forehead, started to pray to the gods for his soul. Ino, while initially upset that Kiba would insult Sasuke, did not feel the usual anger that she used to feel when Sasuke was insulted in her presence before. Looking over towards Team 7, Ino did not feel the old feelings that she used to whenever she was around Sasuke. Inside her mind, Ino snapped her mental fingers and said, "Damn. It looks like I really am over Sasuke. Then that means that I do have a crush on Naruto, well at least I didn't get a crush on Kiba. Still, this is too good of an opening to annoy Kiba to resist." With that Ino brought her closed fist onto the top of Kiba's head. She then said just loud enough so that her voice could carry, "Calm down Kiba, I hear that getting fixed will calm a hyperdog down so it might work on you." Kiba narrowed his eyes and said, "That was a low blow Ino." Ino just smirked and shot back, "You left yourself wide open for that and you know it dog breath." "So troublesome," was heard to Team 10's left. Naruto then without turning around said, "Hello Shikamaru, how are Choji and Hinata doing?" Team 8 came into view and Hinata said, "We're doing fine and Naruto." Only moments later Team 7 came and joined their fellow rookies. Seeing the 9 of them there Kiba said, "Well it looks like the rookie 9 have all showed up." Suddenly a silver-haired boy with glasses came up to the rookie 9 and said, "Not so loud you rookies. This hall is filled with ninjas, many with short tempers and they are ready to fight." Shikamaru then said, "And who would you be?" At this the silver-haired boy gave a friendly smile and adjusted his glasses before saying, "My name's Kabuto, a fellow Konoha ninja. These exams are no picnic let me assure you. I've seen real good ninjas fail, die, or be driven insane." At this, most of the rookie 9 got sullen looks on their faces. Sakura then said in a shaky voice, "Kei Kabuto, how many times have you taken this exam?" Kabuto shrugged his shoulders and said, "This is my 7th time trying to take the exam. Because of my failures, I started collecting whatever information I could on my various competitors. After all, information is power." At this point Kabuto pulled out a deck of cards and said, "While we may be competitors in the exams, we are all Konoha ninja at the end of the day. On these cards in my hands I've stored information on various ninja. Just tell me the name of the ninja you would like to know more about and I'll share what I have with the person." Just as Sasuke was about to ask Kabuto for some information about Gaara of the Sand and Rock Lee, Ino and Kiba both felt Naruto lightly tugging at their clothes. The two followed Naruto over to the corner where Ino confronted Naruto. "Naruto, what's going on? The Kabuto guy was about to give us a lot of information." Naruto turned to face Kiba and said, "What does Akamaru say about Kabuto's power level?" Kiba and Ino were confused about Naruto's question, but Kiba asked Akamaru anyway. Kiba's eyes suddenly narrowed as he said, "Akamaru says that Kabuto's power level is around that of Anko and just as well controlled." Ino then said in a questioning tone, "How can that be? Kabuto said that he had failed 7 times, could he have just gotten back from a training trip?" Naruto thought about it and then said, "That is possible, but it is unlikely. Kabuto's body language is too humble and unsure to belong to a person who has gotten so strong. It is very strange that in a place like this someone would show up with information and so freely give it to people he's never met before. I'm almost certain that Kabuto's not worried about us embarrassing Konoha, there are 7 other teams from Konoha here." Kiba then said, "So Naruto, what are you saying about Kabuto?" Naruto shrugged his shoulders and then said, "All I'm saying is that we should avoid Kabuto when we can in the exam. We need to gather more information on Kabuto before we can say what's going on for sure. Until you told me his power level, all I knew was that my gut was telling me he was bad news. Kiba and Ino just shocked their heads when they heard why Naruto had originally pulled them over. While Naruto's reasoning might seem a little ridiculous to others, Kiba and Ino had come to trust their friend and leader's instincts. Due to their private conversation, Team 10 missed the altercation between Kabuto and the single team from the village hidden in sound. Just as Team 10 was about to rejoin the rest of the rookies, Ibuki walked out of a door and said, "Alright, you mangy fools. Anyone who is not inside this room behind me and sitting at a desk in 10 minutes will be disqualified from the Chunin exams." There was then an orderly but mad rush to get into the classroom by the various genin. After all of the Chunin hopefuls were seated, several of Ibuki's assistants slowly walked around the classroom handing out writing supplies and a sheet of paper. Once the assistants had finished handing out the supplies and returned to the sides of the room, Ibuki turned to address the genin. "This is the first exam of many that you hope will be taking in order to become Chunin. I don't expect most of you to make it past this test, let alone have a real chance of becoming Chunin. You will answer the questions listed on the test in front of you within 1 hour. For each question you get wrong, you will lose a point. For every time we catch you cheating, you will lose 2 points. The last question will be given in 45 minutes. And one last thing, when you screw up like you inevitably will, your teammates will be forced to leave with you as well." Naruto flipped over his test and looked at the questions written on the sheet. Mentally, Naruto started cursing as he read over the questions. How by the goddess am I supposed to know the answers to these questions, when I know that most jonin probably don't know the answers? Wait a minute, Ibuki said that we would lose 2 points if we were caught cheating. Normally on tests you would lose all your points if you are caught cheating. With the insane questions and lenient cheating rules, that logically means that we are supposed to cheat. That would make sense as it does test our information gathering abilities. Naruto almost let out a groan when he continued to think the situation out. However, I can't cheat well. Kiba's the main information gatherer of our team, not me. I am sure we'll be able to cheat thanks to the mind/body transfer jutsu that is the basic skill of her family arts. There is no way that I can create a good enough genjutsu to allow me to look at someone else's sheet without getting caught. Any other way of cheating would be too obvious. Let's face it, I'm a combat ninja without information gathering abilities, at least of the level needed for this scenario. I'll have to hope that Kiba or Ino find a way to help me. Naruto suddenly felt a paw on his foot and looked down to see Akamaru standing on his foot. Kiba's furry companion then walked in front of Naruto's normal line of sight and started to wag his tail. Suddenly Naruto realized what Akamaru was trying to do and nearly crowded inside his mind. Good boy. You're giving me the answers in Morse code by the wagging of your tail. I've got to remember to get you some doggy treats, Akamaru, after this is all over. 30 minutes, and the cheat sheet was secretly delivered. Naruto and the rest of the surviving genin were waiting for Ibuki to deliver the final question. Well, it seems that we have a good deal of intelligent ninja here, either that or a bunch of really good cheaters. Before I give you the last question, you will have to choose. You can decide not to take the question and automatically fail. However, should you decide to take the question and you get it wrong, then you will be forbidden by the various villages from even taking the Chunin exams again. The teams of genin started to rapidly decline as one by one various team members would be overcome by fear and forfeit. Naruto let the teams dwindle till he saw Sakura start to raise her hand. Although he didn't really like the girl, Naruto felt the need to help the rookie 9 whenever he could reasonably do so. Naruto then raised his voice and said, "Will you cut it with the mind games, Mr. Ibuki? This whole test has been nothing but a mind game of yours since we started. You've tested our information gathering abilities in the form of having to cheat in an impossibly hard test, and now you have to pull this latest trick on us. You may have more experience, and you may have seen more action on the field than we have, but you need to know one thing, Ibuki. We are proud ninjas of the hidden villages that we represent, and we will not cower in front of a person who will play games with us." Ibuki looked across the classroom and into the eyes of the various genin sitting in front of him. Any and all uncertainty that they might have had was washed away in Naruto's speech. Ibuki was annoyed that so many had passed, but he was also proud that a fellow Konoha ninja would restore courage to his comrades. Ibuki then smirked and said, very good, it seems that someone knows how to look underneath the underneath. The brat is correct, the first part of the test was on your information gathering skills. The second part of the test is to see whether you have the courage to face the unknown or if you would rather take the safe and easy path. A person lacking in either of these abilities is not worthy of becoming a chunin. By being here now you all have proven that you have what it takes in these requirements and so have passed the first test. Before anyone could cheer, Kurenai appeared looking like she had melted out of the wall before saying, you hopefuls may have passed the first test, but I doubt you have the strength of mind to pass my exam. That's it for this reading. I hope you liked it, and I thank you for your continued support. Please like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.